Chapter 1595. The night was quiet and the wind was chilly. The winter weather had also started to turn cold. The room was surrounded by a heater. Because Chu Qingyan was pregnant, no one dared to let down their guard to keep warm. Jasper handed a hand warmer to her master. Seeing her master's absent-minded expression, she couldn't help but ask, "Is master thinking about his highness and little master?" Chu Qingyan was too embarrassed to admit it, so she waved her hand and said, "I've been sleeping in the daytime for too long, so I'm not sleepy now. You can leave first. I'll call you if there's anything." After following her master for so many years, how could she not understand her master's thoughts? She smiled faintly, nodded, and left. After the door was closed, Chu Qingyan hugged the quilt with one hand and supported her chin with the other. This was the first time she slept alone since they got together. On such a cold night, she disappointingly admitted that she couldn't sleep at all without Big Ice's warm embrace. Once some habits were formed, it was really hard to change. For example, she was used to being in his embrace, enjoying his warmth, and used to smelling the faint ink fragrance on his body, which had the effect of calming the mind and helping her sleep. Sigh, she really lost both her son and her husband today. Jasper, who had just left, bumped into Xiao. She bowed in greeting. "Your Highness. Ian has rested?" "She hasn't rested yet." Jasper answered truthfully. Xiao nodded. "You can leave." "Yes." Before Jasper left, she looked at Xiao suspiciously. Under that wide cloak, he seemed to be hugging something, but he was hugging it too tightly, so she couldn't see clearly. When she turned the corner and saw the flash of a little shoe, she understood and left with a smile. It seemed that she had to tell old Madame Chu tonight that she didn't need to look after little master. At this time, the gloomy Chu Qingyan heard the door open. Thinking that Jasper had returned, she asked in a muffled voice without raising her head, "Why are you back? Did you leave something behind?" She had already entered the room and the door was closed, but she didn't hear a reply. She was a little puzzled. When she turned her head again, she heard the familiar footsteps and couldn't help but open her eyes. The person was already near, and so was the voice. "After I left, I realized that I had left you behind, so I came back to look for you." There was a hint of mockery in her coldness, and a hint of a smile in her mockery. He didn't need to look to know who it was. Chu Qingyan snorted, "You still know to come back. I thought you forgot about your wife after you had a son." Xiao felt that this scene was familiar. Didn't it just happen today? He sat down, lifted the little fellow's chin with one hand, and covered her without any explanation. Their lips and teeth intertwined, kissing her until she was gasping for breath. Chu Qingyan leaned on his shoulder and raised her hand to hit him. She grumbled softly, "I thought you really abandoned me last night." Pregnant women tended to have a little temper. It was as if the delicate side of her that she had never noticed before had been stimulated. If it had been any other time, she wouldn't have thought much of the big ice cube sleeping with her son. But now that she was pregnant, she was sentimental and needed someone to accompany her. That was why she felt this way. Thus, Chu Qingyan despised her own pretentiousness and complained about the injustice she had suffered. Xiao smiled. His hand that was around her slender waist stroked her silky hair. "When have I ever let you be alone? You little vinegar jar." Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. Who was jealous of their son today? Indeed, only the state officials were allowed to set fires, but the common people were not allowed to light lamps. At this moment, she saw her son wrapped in his cloak from the corner of her eye. She immediately sat up in shock. "You brought Kong back?" After saying this, she suspiciously looked at the calm person beside her. She had no idea what he was thinking. But when she thought about how they had kissed in front of Kong, even if he was asleep, her face couldn't help but turn red. She couldn't help but pat his shoulder a few times. How embarrassing! How could Xiao not know what she was thinking? He caressed her face, then placed their sleeping son between the two of them. He considerately covered him with a blanket. "Tonight, we'll sleep as a family of 3. After saying this, he kissed his dazed wife. Chu Qingyan was stunned. "Didn't you not let Kong sleep with me today? Why did you suddenly change your mind?" Xiao's gaze fell on his son who was sleeping soundly under the blanket. He softened his tone. I didn't let you sleep with him because I was afraid that he would kick the blanket in the middle of the night and kick your stomach. But after thinking about it, Imperial Mother didn't want to sleep with me in the past. I was used to sleeping alone, but I forgot that at his age he should spend more time with his parents. I didn't have a complete childhood, so how could I let him have an incomplete childhood? Hearing him talk about the past, Chu Qingyan's eyes couldn't help reddening. She couldn't help but reach out to hug his waist and rest her head on his shoulder. It's fine, it's all in the past. Isn't it just me and Kong Kong now? Right, there's also the baby in my stomach. Our entire family is here. In the future, we'll be complete. He patted the back of her hand and softly said, I've always known that. Then let's sleep together tonight. She obediently burrowed into the blanket and patted the spot beside her as she smiled at him. Xiao Su took off his clothes and burrowed into the blanket as well. He hugged the soft little fellow across from Kong'an and smiled faintly. I'll keep an eye on Kong'an tonight and won't let him kick you. Sleep peacefully. Chu Qingyan rubbed against his arm and nodded. She closed her eyes. She clearly wasn't sleepy at all earlier, but once she smelled his scent, her entire body relaxed. Drowsiness overwhelmed her, and she fell asleep. Hearing the long breaths by his ear, Xiao Su curved his lips. Having a wife and child to warm his bed was probably just like this. Thus, hugging the most important wife and child in his life, Xiao Su also gradually fell asleep. However, this night was long for Xiao Su. Because his son, who looked obedient, was like a little demon king when he slept. He didn't stop at all. Xiao Su spent the entire night watching over him and basically didn't sleep at all. Because she slept very well, Chu Qingyan stretched lazily. Then, she opened her eyes and turned her head to the side comfortably. She saw that Big Ice Cube had woken up early and was half sitting on the bed, staring intently at his sleeping son. What's with Big Ice Cube's black face? There's even a bruise at the corner of his mouth. Where did it come from? It clearly wasn't there before he went to sleep. At this moment, the culprit also woke up. He rubbed his eyes and after seeing where he was sleeping, he jumped up like a carp. Baby can't believe it. Baby must be dreaming. That's right, you've been dreaming. Xiao Su gritted his teeth. Little Kong nodded seriously. Yes, last night, Baby dreamed that someone wanted to catch Baby, so Baby punched him left and right and beat him down. Ha! Chu Qingyan tried hard to hold back her laughter. So that's how it was. At this moment, little Kong, who didn't know what was going on, scratched his head and said in confusion, Father, why do you look so pale? Xiao Su held his forehead. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted. Chapter 1596. Inside the room, Gongsun Shui was sitting while Qiu Feng, who had sold her body to bury her father yesterday, stood in front of her. If Xiao Yao was here, he would find that this little girl was no longer as timid and sorrowful as before. Instead, she had a solemn expression and a straight back, as if she was a completely different person. Is everything done? Gongsun Shui asked. Because she usually liked to be quiet, Xiao Yao didn't arrange for any servants to stay in her room. Even a few maids would only serve her medicine and meals, and wouldn't appear in front of her unless there was something important. Therefore, she wasn't afraid of being overheard when she spoke to Qiu Feng. It's all done. I borrowed the identity of an outsider to visit my family in the capital, but my relatives are long gone and I used up all my traveling expenses. My father died of an illness, so I sold my body to bury him, Qiu Feng immediately replied. Gongsun Shui nodded. Although it's not perfect, they won't be able to find anything wrong in a short time. Rest assured and stay here. I'll give you some advice later. You just have to pay attention to the rest. Qiu Feng received the order and said, Sect Master, Qin Yu has already done as you instructed. You can be at ease with the matters of the clan for now. However, Qin Yu said that she hasn't found any information about the Xiao clan yet. Sect Master, please wait a moment. So long as she finds any information, she'll notify me. Gongsun Shui knew that it wouldn't be found out so quickly. It's fine. Tell her to be careful and don't let anyone find out. When you meet up, be careful. The Xiao family, she paused and continued, is not an ordinary family, so it's necessary to be cautious. Xiao Feng nodded. Sect Master, don't worry. We will be careful. After talking about business, Xiao Feng's expression relaxed, and she said with relief, Sect Master, you don't know how worried we were when you were missing. Gong Sun Shui thought of the pursuit that day and her eyes dimmed. However, she was more amiable to her loyal subordinates. It's fine. It's all in the past. Hearing the sect master's nonchalant tone, Xiao Feng's eyes instantly felt a little sour. The sect master had never taken her body seriously. No matter how her subordinates tried to persuade her, she didn't care at all. With such a cold personality, they could only pay more attention to her in the future. Although I don't know the background of this Xiao clan, it is all thanks to their help that you are safe and sound. Gong Sun Shui couldn't help but think of Xiao Yao. Although she didn't want to admit it, she still owed him a favor. Yes, no matter who they are, we owe them a favor. Xiao Feng deeply agreed. Disregarding everything else, just setting up a courtyard for the sect master to recuperate was not something an ordinary family would have. However, a thought suddenly flashed through Xiao Feng's mind, and she couldn't help but blurt out, these people wouldn't be Elder Su's people, and they're preparing to scheme against you? Gong Sun Shui denied without hesitation, no, how could Elder Su and the others have such powerful helpers? Not to mention the abilities of these people, just their bearing and low profile was not something that Elder Su and the others could compare to. Perhaps they could not find such an aristocratic family in the Yu clan. This time, Xiao Feng was a bit confused. Those people are unrelated to us. If Elder Su's people didn't want to harm you, then why would they help you for no reason? This was also what Gong Sun Shui couldn't figure out. Could it be that they really came to help when they saw injustice on the road? Xiao Feng was confused. Gong Sun Shui thought that perhaps this was the only explanation. The master and servant chatted for a while more, and a series of footsteps came from outside. The two of them naturally stopped talking. Xiao Yao entered the room, and his gaze immediately fell on Gong Sun Shui. He held up the box in his hand as if he was presenting a treasure. I just came back from outside and I brought you some buns. I heard from the locals that the buns are the best here. As he spoke, Xiao Yao placed the buns on the table in front of her. By the way, have you taken the medicine this morning? Xiao Yao sat down on a chair across the table and asked with concern. Gong Sun Shui raised her chin at the empty bowl beside her. Xiao Yao understood and continued, although the medicine is a bit bitter, Yen Luo said that your injuries are mostly healed, and you won't need to drink it again after 3 or 4 days. Bear with it, I'll find you some delicious candied fruits in the next 2 days to suppress the taste. There's no need. The medicine isn't that bitter. She had taken countless medicines since she was young, so this was nothing to her. Xiao Yao waved his fan and smiled. Don't decline. It's settled then. I'm going to buy it for Kong Kong anyway. Because he was the one who brewed the medicine, he naturally knew how it tasted. However, if he drank it himself, he wouldn't be afraid of the bitterness, nor would he find it disgusting. But when he thought about how she was a girl, he knew that she wouldn't like it. He was used to seeing those delicate girls in the capital who were either afraid of fatigue or suffering. No matter how strong she was still a girl and needed to be taken care of carefully. Gong Sun Shui thought that she was just incidental, so she let him be. Sir, please have some tea. At this moment, a cup of tea was placed beside his hand. Xiao Yao looked in the direction of the voice and felt that the servant girl was somewhat familiar. Just as he was wondering where he had seen her, Xiao Feng took the initiative to speak. Sir, thank you for saving my life yesterday. Wasn't this the little girl who sold herself to bury her father yesterday? He didn't expect that after tidying up, she was still a delicate and pretty little girl. He nodded at her. Since Miss Sun thinks highly of you, you should serve her well. If you have second thoughts, she doesn't need to say anything. This sir won't forgive you. It was normal for him to instruct her, so Xiao Feng hurriedly agreed in fear and trepidation. Xiao Yao turned around after he finished speaking and saw that the ice beauty was just sitting there quietly. She didn't even touch the steamed buns on the table. He couldn't help but place his fan on the table and help her open the box. You can't tell the taste just by looking at it. You have to taste it yourself to know. Try one. Gong Sun Shui was just thinking about something when a steamed bun suddenly landed in front of her. She suppressed the urge to twitch her eyes. To be honest, she rarely ate anything other than staple food. But seeing that he had allowed Xiao Feng to come in, she couldn't refuse his good intentions, so she took it from him. Xiao Feng, who was standing at the side, felt like a storm had set off in her heart. Didn't Sect Master dislike people getting close to her? Didn't she dislike eating snacks? Why did she not only let Xiao Yao get close to her, but also take the food from him? What exactly happened when they weren't by Master's side? Xiao Yao didn't know what the servant girl beside him was thinking. Seeing the ice beauty take a bite, he immediately leaned over and asked, "How's the taste?" Gong Sun Shui originally thought that it was just a steamed bun. She didn't expect that it didn't taste like greasy meat. She couldn't help but taste it carefully. It seems to have the fragrance of flowers. You can't eat too greasy food. You just ate a rose-steamed bun, so it naturally has the fragrance of roses. Roses can be added to the taste? Of course, there's nothing impossible about it. Xiao Yao chuckled, then picked one up and ate it with her. Sect Master was actually discussing this kind of issue with someone. Xiao Feng felt that everything in front of her was not real. Chapter 1597. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Xiao Yao felt comfortable all over. In addition, the sun was shining brightly and the weather was good. With a beauty beside him, he felt even more comfortable. However, this was only Xiao Yao's thought. Because Gong Sun Shui felt that this person was too noisy by her ear. It would be best if he could shut up. Xiao Yao was completely unaware that he was being disliked. He was still talking about the interesting things that happened when he went out today. Isn't young master a local? Xiao Feng was pouring tea for the two of them. At this moment, she seemed to inadvertently ask a question out of curiosity. Xiao Yao was talking to his heart's content. When he heard this, he casually replied, "Of course not. We came from another place. I have to say that although there are many exotic flowers and strange animals here, it is not as prosperous as where we come from. The people live and work in peace. In short, the difference is too great." As a prince of a country, of course he was satisfied with his country and would naturally praise it. However, he did not exaggerate. During the years when his brother was ruling, it was really a bountiful harvest. The people had enough food and clothing. However, these words were unpleasant to Qiu Feng's ears. Wasn't this belittling the Yu clan? However, no matter how dissatisfied she was, she could not express it in front of others to avoid exposing her identity. However, Gong Sun Shui heard another layer of meaning. You mean that your hometown does not have the flowers, plants, and animals here? Xiao Yao nodded and casually pointed to the garden. Do you see that deciduous grass? I don't dare to say that we don't have it, but at least I haven't seen it before. Gong Sun Shui's mind worked quickly. These flowers and plants were everywhere in North Korea. However, Xiao Yao said that he had never seen them before coming here. Even if he lived in seclusion deep in the mountains and forests, those animals should be everywhere. Could it be that he was not from North Korea? If he was not from North Korea, then where did he come from? After he finished speaking, the ice beauty did not respond. Xiao Yao smiled and tilted his head to look at her. As he turned his head, he met the ice beauty's scrutinizing gaze in time. Gong Sun Shui was only a little embarrassed to be caught red-handed, but her expression did not change. After so many years, she had already developed this temperament. Even if she was in a mess internally, she would not show it on the surface. This kind of scrutinizing gaze reminded Xiao Yao of the days when everyone had to be on guard against him. Those people looked at him with such a gaze, guarding against him. Although 3 years had passed, the marks left behind couldn't be erased in a short time. Although it was different from Gong Sun Shui, the smile on his face faded as he recalled his brother's warning. Gong Sun Shui could clearly feel the faint indifference from Xiao Yao. The light in his eyes seemed to have been blown away by the wind. She was a little annoyed, but she was not good with words. She did not know how to break the awkward atmosphere. Thus, one looked at the ground, the other looked at the sky, and the other looked at the ground, frozen like this. Although Qiu Feng didn't understand why there was an awkward silence between the two of them, as a subordinate, she still knew how to adjust the atmosphere. She immediately smiled and said, "Master, are the buns that second master bought delicious?" This servant is about to drool from looking at them. Because Gong Sun Shui was the one who asked for Qiu Feng, it was right for Xiao Yao to call her master. Although he was a little unhappy, Xiao Yao was used to liveliness. The sudden silence between the two made him feel a little uncomfortable. However, he didn't know why he couldn't harden his heart and leave like this. But with his pride as a prince, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to speak, so the two of them could only sit there. Thus, whether Qiu Feng was trying to help or not, the atmosphere eased a lot. Xiao Yao followed Qiu Feng's words and said, "How could your master be someone who knows how to praise others? Of course it's delicious. If you're hungry, let your master give you one." How could Gong Sunshui not know that his words were meant to sting her? She was complaining that he had bought so many things for her, but she had never said anything nice to him. Although he was mocking her, she couldn't get angry. After all, that was the truth. However, she didn't know why she felt a little wronged. She thought that she was overthinking things. She had just finished eating the bun in her hand. When she heard Xiao Yao's words, she pointed at the remaining buns and said, "If you like them, I'll give them all to you." If these words were spoken in the clan, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Xiao Yao had personally gone out to buy these buns for her. Giving them all away so selflessly and without hesitation, even the most magnanimous person would feel uncomfortable. When Qiu Feng heard this, she cursed inwardly. Her sect master had always been lacking in worldly wisdom, but as the head of a clan, there was no one else in North Korea with a higher status than her. Naturally, she didn't need to consider these things. However, the situation was different now. Moreover, she could tell that this Xiao Yao was sincere. It would be very easy for her to embarrass him like this. As expected, when she carefully glanced over, Xiao Yao's expression darkened. But perhaps because of his upbringing, he didn't leave in a huff. She immediately waved her hand and said to her sect master, "This servant will go and see if the water is boiling." After saying this, she immediately left this troublesome place. If she stayed any longer, her sect master would definitely insist that she take the buns away. That way, second master Xiao would probably be even more unhappy. After Gong Sunshui said this, she saw Qiu Feng hastily run away. When she turned back, she saw that Xiao Yao's expression was even worse than before. She immediately realized that she had said the wrong thing. She was used to rewarding people, but she forgot that he was the one who had specially sold those buns to her. No matter how proud and arrogant she was usually, she knew that she had made a mistake now. Xiao Yao was already gloomy, but when he saw the flash of annoyance in her eyes, most of the anger in his heart dissipated. He rubbed his forehead. He clearly knew that she didn't know how to coax people, and she didn't do it on purpose. Forget it, he wouldn't pursue the matter. At this moment, Gong Sunshui unexpectedly opened her mouth. "These buns do taste pretty good." Xiao Yao already didn't expect to hear anything nice from her. When he suddenly heard this, his joy immediately overshadowed his previous gloominess. He spoke without thinking, "The next time I go out, I'll bring you some delicious food. I saw that snow pear cake shop that we passed by today was pretty good." After saying this, he regretted that he had eagerly tried to curry favor with her. But when he thought that girls should be treated well, he cast this thought aside and went to Java. Gong Sunshui didn't think that this guy would be so easy to coax. The uneasiness in her heart immediately dissipated, and she unexpectedly responded. This made Xiao Yao extremely happy, but he had to desperately suppress it. If his royal brother was here, he would definitely say that he couldn't keep his cool. However, his happiness still leaked out, which surprised Gong Sunshui. This person was really easy to satisfy. Suddenly, a sentence sounded by her ear. "Miss Sun, we can be considered friends, right?" Chapter 1598. Miss Sun, we can be considered friends, right? Even Gong Sunshui, who was usually calm, was stunned by his words. Friends? If she had been young and carefree, she would have had an extravagant hope for these two words. But now, after experiencing all the scheming and scheming, she had long since given up on these two words. Now that Xiao Yao suddenly mentioned it, her mind suddenly went blank because she saw the sincerity in the handsome man's eyes. Second young Master Xiao, I'm afraid there's a difference between men and women. They couldn't be friends. Xiao Yao didn't expect to hear anything nice from her, so he clicked his tongue. You even dared to fight with others, so why would you be afraid of a difference between men and women? Besides, it's fate that we met. We've been through life and death together, so it wouldn't be wrong to call us friends. Gong Sun Shui couldn't refute him after he said it so bluntly. If he told her his identity and his family background were clean, perhaps they could really become friends. Unfortunately, she knew nothing about him, and she felt a little uneasy. Therefore, based on her investigation of him, she felt that if she admitted to being his friend, it would be unfair to him. Of course, investigating his identity was already a form of disrespect, but as the leader of a clan, she shouldered the heavy responsibility of North Korea, so she had to do it. After Xiao Yao finished speaking, he saw her sitting there quietly without responding. He knew the answer in his heart. He thought that her softening her attitude just now was because there was hope for him to break the ice, so he asked this question. However, he didn't expect that he was still wrong. Ice was ice. How could it be melted into water? Miss Sunday, Gong Sun Shui heard him call her. His voice wasn't as warm as before, but it wasn't rude either. Her heart skipped a beat, and she turned to look at him. She saw that his clear eyes were full of magnanimity, but also seemed to be mixed with a few strands of disappointment, but they were still bright. I'm not from North Korea. If there's a chance, I can take you to see my country. Actually, if you're willing, I'll accompany you to see thousands of mountains and rivers. However, she didn't respond to his friend's words just now, so he couldn't say this sentence out loud. When Chiu Feng returned from boiling the water, only Gong Sun Shui was left in the room. Where's second young master? Chiu Feng thought, could it be that the sect leader had driven him away? Chiu Feng was a trusted aide, so she guessed it immediately. Gong Sun Shui was still thinking about what Xiao Yao had just said. She suddenly felt a little upset. Because her questions today had made him suspicious, he openly admitted that he wasn't from North Korea, as if he wasn't afraid that she would find out. However, his last sentence made her heart tremble. But after saying that, he got up and left. She knew that he wasn't joking when he said he would take her out, but compared to the way he looked at her in the past, there was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. She suddenly felt a faint sense of fatigue. Autumn Maple, I'm tired. When Chiu Feng heard this, she immediately said nervously, it might be because of the medicine. Master, you should go rest first. This subordinate will wake you up when it's dinner time. After so many years of suspicion, she was really tired. However, there was nothing she could do. He had admitted that he wasn't from North Korea, but she couldn't just pretend that this didn't exist. She closed her eyes and finally said, Chiu Feng, send a message to Qingyu. Tell her that these people from the Xiao clan aren't from the Sun Moon clan. Investigate them in other countries. Autumn Maple was shocked. Weren't we cut off from the other countries? Could it be that someone snuck in? Find a chance to send the message. I'm tired. Gong Sunshui rubbed the space between her eyebrows, then stood up and walked towards the inner room with a tired expression. It was rare to see the sect master so tired. Chiu Feng even forgot about her previous question and immediately followed to serve her. After Xiao Yao left Gong Sunshui's courtyard, he didn't return to his own room. Instead, he went to another courtyard, where his imperial grandfather and father Chu sparred. To be more precise, it was also where Xiao Onkong played. Before he even walked in, he heard the sounds of sparring inside, as well as the laughter of children. The disappointment in his heart lessened a little, and he strode in. The moment he entered, he saw Hualing. He shook his head at Hualing, then when everyone was distracted by the sparring between the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu, he easily leaped onto a tree and sat on top, taking in everyone below him. Xiao Yao smiled when he heard the laughter. Then, he put his hands behind his head, leaned against the tree trunk, and closed his eyes. He remembered what happened in the Ice Beauty's room, and the curve on his lips dropped. Yesterday, his imperial brother had mentioned to him that there might be a problem with the Ice Beauty's identity. Although he didn't seem to take it to heart, he still paid attention to it because his imperial brother would never say something for no reason. He believed in his imperial brother. He remembered how she kept her mouth shut about her family, how she refused to talk about those assassins who wanted to kill her, and how she tested him today. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't disappointed. But even so, he still thought that if there was a chance, he wanted to take her to Sichuan for a walk, to see other countries. He wanted to share the beautiful scenery that he had once admired with her. If his imperial brother was here, he would definitely scold him for having no ambition. But there was nothing he could do. He felt that this ice beauty was quite pleasing to the eye. Moreover, he didn't know why, but he felt a little heartache for her. Although she acted like she didn't care about anything and didn't care about anything, he just felt that this little girl deserved to be pampered very well. He just wanted to bring all the beautiful things to her. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but rub the space between his eyebrows and laugh at himself. When did he become so benevolent and kind? She was just a stranger he met by chance, yet he was so concerned about her? At this time, Xiao heard the sound of leaves rustling and couldn't help but open his eyes. However, the pair of big eyes in front of him almost scared him to the point of rolling down. He immediately went forward and hugged little Kong, who was standing on the branch, tightly hugging him. After he sat firmly in his arms, he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said with trembling lips, "My little ancestor, how did you get up here? Where are the people who followed you?" If anything happened, he wouldn't be able to explain it to his imperial brother and sister-in-law even if he died 10,000 times. Compared to his second uncle, little Kong wasn't flustered at all, but he honestly said, "When I saw second uncle playing on the tree, Bao Bao climbed up alone." Climb? Xiao immediately looked at the distance between them and the ground, and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his eyes. As expected of his imperial brother's son, he actually had such ability at such a young age. That's right. Soon, Bao Bao will be able to learn martial arts. Just like Hua Ling and Su Su, Bao Bao won't have to crawl when he flies up. Little Kong patted the bark on his hands in disdain. If his father knew that he was dirty all over, he would definitely not let him near his mother. Thus, he secretly grabbed second uncle's sleeve and wiped his hands. Chapter 1599. Xiao did not notice Xiao Kong's small actions. He was worried about his safety and lectured him. "If there's no one by your side in the future, don't do this. Otherwise, second uncle will tell your father. I'll let your father punish you." This little devil was not afraid of anything. In addition, he was doted on by everyone. He could do whatever he wanted. He would only be afraid when his father was mentioned. Xiao Kong pouted. I know. I only came up because I saw that second uncle was unhappy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come up." Hearing this, Xiao was stunned. He touched his face. Was he that obvious? Even a child could tell. At this moment, Xiao Kong hugged his neck and said, "Second uncle, don't be unhappy. I'll play with you." Xiao patted his head. "Second uncle has always been happy. Why would I be unhappy?" Nonsense. Xiao Kong's face was solemn like a little adult. If it were any other time, second uncle would definitely come and play with us. He wouldn't hide in the tree alone. Xiao sighed. What was wrong with this world? Was it because he was old and could not hide it anymore, or was Xiao Kong too smart? However, Xiao Kong's concern made him feel much better. Second uncle is just a little disappointed. Maybe he saw a small flame and pounced on it. Actually, it's just a reflection of the moon in the mirror. He would not tell anyone these words. No matter how upset Xiao was, there was no reason for him to go around telling others. However, Xiao Kong was still young, so he did not mind telling him. Anyway, children would just listen to it. However, how could Xiao Kong, who could climb a tree and see people's emotions, be an ordinary child? He betrayed Xiao in the blink of an eye. However, although Xiao Kong did not understand such profound words, he still comforted him dutifully. Second uncle, mother said that there are many hardships in life. However, only when you don't make things difficult for yourself can you live happily every day. Second uncle, don't be sad. Kong will accompany you. Although Xiao Ankang's words were vague, Xiao Yao still understood. He sighed in his heart. Xiao Ankang was so sensible, it must have been taught by his royal sister-in-law. Your mother should be talking about the 8 hardships of life. Birth, old age, illness, death, love, separation, resentment, longing, unable to let go. Xiao Ankang nodded heavily. That's right. That's it. Xiao Yao smiled bitterly. He was now all alone in the world, free and unfettered, without any illness or calamity, so how could he have any of these hardships? However, there was a bit of bitterness in his heart that he couldn't explain. Later on, Xiao Yao realized that he couldn't ask for it. Second uncle, you have to learn to be open-minded. Little Ankang imitated his father and patted him on the shoulder. If Xiao Yao was still a little depressed, it was all gone by Xiao Ankang's comforting words. He could not help but hug him happily. Xiao Ankang saw that his second uncle finally smiled, revealing his canine teeth. Second uncle, aren't you feeling uncomfortable? Xiao Yao shook his head. With this clown around, it would be difficult for him to feel uncomfortable. Little Ankang's eyes lit up. Then, second uncle, bring baby to catch some bugs. What? Catching bugs? Xiao Yao didn't understand. Xiao Ankang nodded. That's right. A baby bird fell down, but I couldn't find its mother, so I raised it in my room. Mother said that the baby bird eats worms, but no one was willing to help me catch them, so second uncle, to be honest, although Xiao Yao liked to mess around, he wouldn't do something like catching bugs normally. But the little nephew in front of him was looking at him pitifully, and his soft little body was still in his arms, making him lovable. He had even comforted him just now, so Xiao Yao's heart softened. All right, second uncle will bring you to catch some bugs. Baby knows that second uncle is the best. Let's go and catch some bugs for baby bird. Little Ankang was very excited as he jumped up and down on the tree. Fortunately, Xiao Yao was here, otherwise he might have fallen down. Xiao Yao shook his head and flew down. When he put little Ankang down, he saw Hua Ling standing by the tree. So there was someone watching over little Ankang. As expected, how could someone nurtured by his royal brother be negligent? Suddenly, he realized that this brat had tricked him. Ankang didn't care about him at all, he just wanted him to soften his heart and help catch the bugs. At such a young age, his brain was already so smart. Little Ankang didn't know that his little scheme had been seen through. He pulled on Xiao Yao's clothes and walked forward. Quick, catch the bugs. A gentleman's word was as fast as a whip. He had already made a promise, so he had to catch the bugs no matter what. So Xiao Yao picked up little Ankang and slapped his but as a small punishment. Then the two of them went to dig the soil. The Emperor Emeritus looked at their backs and shook his head. Too stupid. Father Chu exposed him. Weren't you also tricked by Kong Kong to catch bugs yesterday? The Emperor Emeritus retorted, you're saying it like you weren't the one digging yesterday. The two of them looked at each other and continued to fight. Hua Ling looked at the fight here and looked at the digging there. He thought that no matter who he offended in the future, he couldn't offend the little master. That was simply a combination of his master's black bellies and the little princess craftiness. No one could look down on him. Inside the room, the people below were reporting the news. Second master came out of Miss Sun's room and went to the yard to play with the little master, but he looks a bit lonely. Got it, you can leave. Xiao Su dismissed his subordinates. When he turned to the side, he saw the little fellow's serious appearance. He reached out to touch her hand and felt relieved when he felt the warmth. He casually asked, "What are you thinking about?" Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. I keep feeling that second brother is falling deeper and deeper, but there seems to be a layer separating them on Miss Sun's side. It's a bit hard to figure it out. Xiao Su rubbed her little hand and smiled faintly. You like that Miss Sun a lot? Chu Qingyan sighed softly. She's quite pleasing to the eye, but she has to be suitable for second brother. Seeing that the little fellow was really interested in the two of them, Xiao Su thought for a bit and told her the truth so that she would be prepared. I know what you're worried about. I've already sent people to investigate that servant's background, but this isn't Sichuan. Shaolai cavalry will be a bit restrained, so they won't be able to find any information quickly. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and looked puzzled. You have doubts about their identity? Xiao Su picked her up and held her in his arms, his fingers intertwined and played with her. No matter what their background is, since second brother treats Miss Sun differently, we should find out more. Second brother seems smart, but the person involved can't see clearly. As his brother, I have to help him. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh at his words. The big ice cube always silently arranged things for his younger brothers. It was really a blessing to have such an elder brother. I also wish to have an elder brother like you. She sighed. Xiao Su's eyes sparkled. Am I not? Chu Qingyan blinked and was about to refute when she suddenly remembered the words he said to her when he pressed on her body and seduced her with his beauty. Her face immediately turned red. Lover brother? The big ice cube was getting more and more shameless. Chapter 1600. When Chu Qingyan and the others came to this town, they didn't plan to stay for long. However, because Chu Qingyan was found to be pregnant, they decided to stay for the time being to nurse the fetus. This period of nursing lasted for a month or two. Chu Qingyan was already 3 months pregnant and the fetus was stable. In addition, the ice beauty's injuries were almost healed. Therefore, everyone decided to hold a banquet to liven things up. The banquet was set for 3 days later. Qiu Feng was dazzled when she saw the servants bringing in clothes one after another. There were also all kinds of gold and silver jewelry. She pulled one of the servants aside and asked, Who sent these here? The servant smiled and said, Second master asked us to send them here. All right, Miss Qiu Feng, please help Miss Sun keep them well. We have to report back. When Gong Sun Shui changed into a clean set of clothes and was about to practice her sword in the courtyard, she saw Qiu Feng staring at the room full of things as soon as she came out. These? Gong Sun Shui couldn't help but frown when she saw these things. Qiu Feng saw her come out and immediately replied, They said they were sent by second master, but it's not the New Year or any holiday. Qiu Feng was also confused. Gong Sun Shui didn't care. Then accept them. Xiao Yao bought whatever he thought of and piled it up here. There were probably 5 or 6 boxes. However, she didn't have time to think about this now. The most important thing now was to practice her sword skills. She hadn't touched a sword for a while. Qiu Feng was dumbfounded as she watched her sect master leave. If it was in the past, her sect master wouldn't accept anyone's gift. However, since her sect master had spoken, she had to accept it no matter how much doubt she had. As soon as Xiao Yao entered the courtyard, he saw the slender figure dancing under the maple tree. The maple leaves were red like fire, and her white clothes were fluttering in the wind. She was red like fire and white like snow. Fire and snow formed the most dazzling scenery between heaven and earth. Xiao Yao quietly leaned against the wall, watching her body as light as a swallow as she danced with her sword. Although her posture was beautiful, every move was fatal. Sometimes, he wondered what kind of environment she grew up in to be able to raise a girl like her who was as quiet as a virgin and as agile as a rabbit. While Xiao Yao was still in a daze, Gong Sunshui had finished practicing a set of sword techniques. She took a deep breath and exhaled the foul air in her chest. Then, she turned around and looked at the person who had been silent since he came in. His long hair was casually tied behind his head, and he was leaning against the wall without any posture. The mottled colors made him look carefree and unrestrained, as if he was detached from the world. Gong Sunshui felt that she had never seen such a bright and clear man in her life. Without a trace of sharpness, he spoke and laughed gently without any darkness. His eyes were clear, without the stink of money of a businessman, without the smoothness of an official, without the charm of a villain, and without the ambition of someone who played with power. She didn't seem to care about anything, but when she smiled, it was like a spring breeze in the cold winter, warming people's hearts. The young master was as bright as jade, one of a kind. These thoughts quickly flashed through her mind. By the time she reacted, the person who was 10 steps away was already standing in front of her, picking up her sword and admiring it. She couldn't help but take a step back. Was it because her skills had deteriorated, or because she had let her guard down? Or was it because the person in front of her was much better than her? Otherwise, why couldn't she feel him approaching? Xiao Yao played with her sword, as if he didn't see the change in her mood. He nodded approvingly. It's a good sword. Gong Suanxue took the sword from him. She didn't say anything because she knew he still had something to say. Sure enough, Xiao Yao stood in front of her and looked at her. Seeing that her complexion was good, he said, although your injuries have healed, it's best not to do any strenuous exercise. A girl should still take care of herself. She didn't care about the first part of his words, but the last part still made her heart warm up. I'm not as weak as you think. Before her injuries were fully healed, she had already gone into battle to kill the enemy. Time waits for no one, and your enemy won't give you time. But she still softened her tone because of his concern. Xiao Yao knew that she was a person with big ideas. If he cared too much, it would be counterproductive. Seeing her practice just now, there shouldn't be any big problems, so he simply let her be. Your swordsmanship is not bad. Seeing that he didn't say anything and changed the topic, Gong Suanxue raised her eyebrows. Ever since they parted on bad terms last time, this person acted as if nothing had happened. He didn't change his attitude towards her. If she didn't like something, he wouldn't force her, such as now. She didn't know if this was his way of doing things, or if it was just for her. I can still save my life, she said lightly. Xiao Yao felt that this wasn't a good topic to talk about. He touched the back of his head as if he remembered something. Oh right, the kitchen is making soup for you. I'll go take a look. Don't burn it. Ever since she didn't need to boil medicine, Xiao Yao seemed to be interested in her meals. He ran to the kitchen every day, and every time he came back, he smelled like smoke. Do you want to have a match? Looking at his back as he turned to leave, Gong Suanxue blurted out. A trace of regret flashed across her face, but she really wanted to see how good his martial arts were. Hearing this, Xiao Yao turned around and smiled. I don't bully little girls. Gong Suanxue's expression became serious. Xiao Yao, please listen carefully. First, I'm not little anymore. Second, there's no father and son on the battlefield, and there's no difference between men and women in a match. Xiao Yao wasn't scared by her seriousness. Instead, he talked about something else. Oh right, I saw that you don't usually have any clothes or jewelry, so I asked someone to send you a few sets. The banquet is in 3 days. Choose what to wear. Even if it's not for my sake, a girl should still dress beautifully. Not only is it pleasing to the eyes of others, but it's also comfortable for you. After saying this, Xiao Yao walked away, talking to himself. It seems that you practice swordsmanship every day. Then I'll ask the kitchen to buy some bones and stew them. Gong Suanxue watched him talk to himself for a long time, but didn't say anything to her. Did this person think that losing to her would hurt his pride, or was he looking down on her? Or was it really like what he said? Gong Suanxue was suddenly annoyed. She stabbed her sword into the ground and turned around to practice her fist. Master, it seems that second master really cares about you. Qiu Feng just came out and happened to hear Xiao Yao's words. She couldn't help but laugh. Gong Suanxue snorted coldly. He just thinks that after taking care of me for so long, if I still dress so plainly, others will think that he mistreats me. That's why he did this. Of course, Qiu Feng didn't believe her sect master's words. In her opinion, the sect master was just using this as an excuse to make a fuss. She was angry that second master didn't practice swordsmanship with her. But why would the sect master be angry? No matter how angry the sect master was, she would never show it on her face. Qiu Feng shook her head. She couldn't figure it out. Chapter 1601. That night, Gong Suanxue prepared to sleep. Tomorrow was the banquet that the idiot mentioned. Although she didn't like crowds, they had saved her. She would give the idiot some face and sleep early so that others wouldn't think that he had mistreated her. However, even if she appeared at the banquet looking unwell, no one would blame Xiao Yao for mistreating her. Because during this period of time, how Xiao Yao had treated her, everyone had seen it with their own eyes. However, no one was willing to expose it. A dignified prince was actually doing his best to take care of a young lady. If word of this were to spread, perhaps no one would believe it. However, tonight was not a peaceful night. Sect Master, Qing Yu is here. Qiu Feng's voice was hurried. In this quiet night, it made people feel a little cold. In order to prevent being discovered, Qiu Feng had been in contact with the outside world. Now that Qin Yu had suddenly come, and at this time, something big must have happened. Gong Sun Xue's expression tightened. She put on the clothes that she had just taken off and strode out. As soon as she saw her master, Qin Yu immediately bowed and reported, "Sect Master, we've found information about the Xiao family." Gong Sun Xue subconsciously gripped the armrest. She felt a little uneasy, but she didn't show it on her face. She simply said, "Speak." In the past month, we've been investigating relentlessly and finally found some clues. These people are very likely to be related to the Sunblaze sect. To be more precise, these people are probably Murong Yunchuan's people. However, the most important information hasn't been delivered yet. When it arrives, we'll be able to confirm it. Gong Sun Xue let go of the armrest. A complicated expression appeared in her eyes. As expected, it was not far from what she had guessed. The Sunblaze sect has already taken over our stronghold in the Sun Clan. The situation is urgent. I'm afraid that their next step will be to attack the Moon Clan. The High Priest has already received the news and wants you to leave immediately. Although we can't be sure what the Xiao family is doing, based on their relationship with Murong Yunxian, we must stay away from them. I'm worried that if they see through your identity, it will be disadvantageous to you. Qin Yu didn't notice anything wrong with her and spilled the beans. Her heavy and urgent voice was like a storm in this night, causing Gong Sun Xue to be stunned. If Xiao Yao knew her identity, would he harm her? She suddenly laughed bitterly. At a time like this, she was actually concerned about this. She didn't know if she was muddle-headed. She calmed down. When can we confirm their identities? 3 days at the earliest. The news is already on the way, but the High Priest wants you to leave as soon as possible, just in case. When are you leaving? The manpower has been arranged. We can leave now. Gong Sun Xue's gaze fell on the clothes and jewelry placed on the dressing table. She was silent for a while and made a decision. Tomorrow night. Qin Yu did not expect the sect master to make such a decision. She was dumbfounded. Shouldn't the sect master be thinking of retreating as soon as possible at a time like this? Qiu Feng seemed to have thought of something and looked at her sect master in astonishment, but she didn't say anything. Although Qin Yu was somewhat puzzled, she still agreed. Perhaps the sect master had his own considerations. After Qin Yu left, Gong Sun Xue said, "You may leave." Qiu Feng wanted to say something, but after opening her mouth, she gave up and turned around to leave. Gong Sun Xue stood by the window and looked at the empty courtyard. She felt that her entire mind was empty. It wasn't until the sun rose from the east and light shone in through the window that she realized that she had been standing like this for the entire night. She moved her stiff body and suddenly felt that she had no strength left. Leaning against the window, she raised her hand and touched her forehead. In the end, she sighed helplessly. Qiu Feng stood outside the door with a cup of hot water. She only walked in when she heard the commotion inside. But when she entered the inner room, she saw her sect master sitting in a snow-white dress. Her collar was wrapped in a fox fur coat, which made her look even more attractive. Sect master, who didn't use makeup often, was holding one of them in a daze. Qiu Feng felt that she had never seen her sect master dressed like this after following her for so long. She couldn't help but want to see if the sun rose from the west today. Gong Sun Xue heard the noise and said to Qiu Feng, "Help me apply lip color later." She didn't sleep last night and her complexion was a little pale. She could only rely on these things to cover it up. Qiu Feng nodded woodenly. Meanwhile, Gong Sun Xue had already started washing up. She studied it for a long time just now, but she didn't know how to use it at all. As expected, she was more suited for holding a sword and not for makeup. After that, when Qiu Feng helped her sect master tidy up her clothes, she asked uncertainly, "Sect master, what kind of hairstyle do you want?" "You decide. Just don't make it too exaggerated," Gong Sun Xue said lightly. Qiu Feng was overjoyed. She had long wanted to dress her sect master up. Her sect master was born beautiful and her looks were very outstanding. It was because she didn't like to dress up that people always said that Gong Sun Fei was the most beautiful woman in the entire clan. Actually, it wasn't because Gong Sun Fei was good at makeup. If her sect master dressed up, she would definitely be the most beautiful woman in the entire clan. But she only dared to think about it in her heart. If her sect master knew that she had such thoughts, she would probably be punished. Sect master felt that those were just superficial skills. She would rather work harder on her real skills. However, her sect master was acting a little strange today. She actually did something that she had never done before. She didn't know if it was for second master. Tui, those people were most likely their sworn enemies. She must be thinking too much. After tidying up, more than half an hour had passed. Xiao Feng put down the comb and was about to admire her work. However, at this moment, someone walked in. Your door wasn't closed, so I came in. Don't say that I'm trespassing. Before Xiao could finish his words, he turned around and saw the person standing up from the dressing table. White clothes, snow-white skin, red lips, black hair, a flying sky bun, bright moon pearls in her ears, and a jade belt around her slim waist. Her dress fluttered in the wind. She was like a fairy who had walked down from the 9 heavens. She was so otherworldly and beautiful. Xiao was instantly dumbfounded. It wasn't that he had seen too few women. It was because he had seen too many that he was mesmerized by this beauty. Cough cough, you look very good today. Xiao, who was usually very eloquent, was actually stuttering at this moment. Xiao Feng couldn't help but want to laugh when she saw Xiao like this. However, when she thought of the news she had reported last night, she couldn't help but suppress her laughter. Seeing him like this, Gong Sun Shui was quite satisfied. It looked like she was dressed quite well. If you keep standing there like an idiot, you'll be late. When Gong Sun Shui passed by him, she lowered her head and said in disdain. However, no one saw the smile on her face and the smile in her eyes. Chapter 1602. By the time Xiao regained his senses, Gong Sun Shui was already at the door. He slapped his head in annoyance, wondering if the ice beauty would think that he was a lecherous man. Xiao walked towards her in annoyance. The two of them walked side by side to the courtyard. Xiao was the kind of person whose emotions came and went quickly. Otherwise, how could he have lived in the various harem for so long? He returned to his usual joking self. I didn't expect the iron tree to bloom and the ice to warm up. You really exceeded my expectations today. Gong Sun Shui never took his silly words to heart. The family rules are strict and we can't waste them. You sent so much, it would be a waste not to use it. Her words instantly shattered Xiao's dream of a woman making herself beautiful for the man she loves. He pursed his lips. He had carefully selected so many clothes and accessories, and even risked being beaten to death by his imperial brother to ask for imperial sister-in-law's help. But when it came to her, it became a waste not to use it. He felt very tired. But perhaps it was because he was used to it that he was full of energy again. But I have to say, clothes make the man. You look quite good after tidying up a little. Xiao was not stingy with his compliments, not to mention that he took De seriously. Gong Sun Shui glanced at him and nodded. You look quite decent after tidying up a little. Xiao choked. The ice beauty was getting more and more sharp-tongued. This banquet was proposed by Chu Qingyan, mainly for the liveliness. She had been nursing her pregnancy in the courtyard. Although the child in her belly didn't disturb her, it liked to sleep very much. So she basically rested during the day. Everyone was afraid of disturbing her, so they didn't go to her place often. A few days ago, she suddenly felt that she hadn't seen everyone for a long time, so she took advantage of the good weather to propose a banquet. At first, Xiao Su didn't agree, but he couldn't stand her silently wiping her tears and looking at him. It simply melted his heart. So he waved his hand and ordered people to prepare. Chu Qingyan had just been helped to sit down by Xiao Su. She looked up and saw Yen Luo, Ethereal, the retired emperor, and her parents were already present. Only Dong Ting, Tao Tao, Xiao, and the Ice Beauty were not here yet. However, it was still early, so there was no hurry. Just then, a loud noise came from the east. Why don't you play the flute? This way we can cooperate with the zither and flute. It was Tao Tao's voice. I don't know how to play the flute. This was Dong Ting's voice. Tao Tao stopped the person who was walking forward. You're lying. I've heard you boast before. That's right, that's right. Higashio Motetsu's smile faded. Tao Tao could feel the coldness in his words. The words that he had bragged about on the day of Qingyan's wedding were stuck in her chest, unable to go up or down. Seeing that she didn't speak for a long time, Higashio Motetsu smiled and knocked on her head. If you want to cooperate with the guqin and flute, find someone who can play it. Anyway, I don't know how to play it. Maybe you can find someone who shares the same interests as you. Don't be silly, let's go. Tao Tao looked at his fluttering clothes, her eyes a little bitter. She understood that it wasn't that he didn't know how to play the flute, but that he wouldn't play it again. That song of sending off the bride was the last time he played it. Even if he couldn't get what he wanted in the end, he still left all his warmth to that person. Tao Tao quickly rubbed her eyes. If he didn't want to play it, then he wouldn't play it. She didn't care. Chu Qingyan waited for a while before the people from the east came over. Higashio Motetsu walked in front of her and sized her up. He shook his head with a chuckle. Qingyan, there's something that this young master doesn't know if he should say. Chu Qingyan saw him like this and knew that he didn't have anything good to say. She waved her hand in annoyance. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Move aside. Higashio Motetsu said disappointedly, you really don't have the courage to face reality. For your own good, I'll say it. Haven't you noticed that your face has become a lot rounder? You'd better eat less. Otherwise, you'll become as fat as a ball in the future and no one wants you. Xiao Su had just walked away when he saw this scene. He put his hand on his wife's shoulder and looked coldly at Higashio Motetsu. You don't have to worry about that. No matter what Ayan becomes, I will cherish her as much as my life. Higashio Motetsu chuckled and winked at Chu Qingyan. True love indeed. Get lost. If it weren't for the ball in her stomach, she would have kicked him long ago. Higashio Motetsu didn't get lost immediately. Instead, he cupped his hands at Xiao Su. Pregnant women are indeed hot-tempered. It's been hard on you. Xiao Su felt that since his love rival wasn't angry at his words, it was obvious that he had already calmed down. He couldn't help but say, throwing a little tantrum is quite cute. Chu Qingyan originally wanted to throw something at Dong Ting, but when she heard her big ice block say that, she felt very happy. If his beloved woman occasionally threw a tantrum, that was called cute. If an unrelated woman occasionally threw a tantrum, that was asking for trouble. She was very happy that her big ice block had helped her turn the tables. At this moment, Tao Tao also walked out. Xiao Su caught sight of her from the corner of his eye and cupped his hands at Higashio Motetsu. You've worked hard too. Higashio Motetsu saw that he was hinting at something. He glanced at Tao Tao from the corner of his eye and pursed his lips. This Xiao Su was really protective. Seeing Dong Ting turn and leave in defeat, Chu Qingyan was very pleased. She touched her big ice block's face. You've helped me regain my dignity today. Tell me, what reward do you want? Xiao Su didn't expect to receive such benefits. He smiled. My wife was very generous today. Then, he whispered something in her ear. Chu Qingyan was originally a little ticklish from his breath, but when she heard him clearly, she was completely stunned. Then she felt a warm current rush from her toes to her face. You but 3 months. She felt that the top of her head was going to emit steam when she said this. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a strong smile. He said in a low voice, Ethereal said that 3 months is enough. You actually asked Ethereal about this. Do? Chu Qingyan felt that she was about to be roasted. She immediately threw herself into his arms, afraid that someone would hear. Xiao Su smiled deeply and hugged his shy wife. No one knew what happened between them. They only saw that Xiao Su, who rarely smiled in front of others, was actually so happy. Indeed, only Chu Qingyan would be able to open up his emotions, including all of his emotions. When Higashio Motetsu saw this scene, he thought of something and stopped smiling. Xiao Su must have used him for something again. This person was too smart. It was really uncomfortable. However, he wasn't jealous. It was purely a competition between men. However, Tao Tao, who was sitting beside him, didn't think so. She thought that he still had feelings for Qingyan, and her heart ached. However, at this moment, the appearance of the other two people successfully attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 1603. A handsome man and a beautiful woman walked side by side, like a walking landscape painting. It was pleasing to the eye, making people unable to look away. That's right, these two people were Xiao and Gong Suanxue. Everyone had only seen the ice beauty once or twice. Because Xiao said she needed to rest and they weren't familiar with her, they didn't interact much with her. They only knew that Xiao was hiding a mistress in a golden house. Now that they saw her, she was indeed an ice and snow peerless woman. Cheng Yenluo poked the person beside her, saying with an envious expression, "Look, these two are so compatible. The man is handsome and the woman is beautiful. They're simply a match made in heaven." Ethereal retracted his gaze and held her hand, rubbing it under the table. There was a clear smile on his face, "But in my eyes, only you are the most beautiful." Cheng Yenluo suddenly heard these words of love and the bold and shrewish woman couldn't help but blush. "What are you saying? We're in public." Ethereal laughed softly as he pulled her into his embrace, not letting anyone see her bashful appearance. If there weren't so many outsiders here, he would like to admire this rare side of her alone. Hualing originally thought that he had only been showered with dog food by the second master, but he didn't expect that sitting beside Ethereal, his ears would also be stuffed with dog food. He silently picked up a chair and moved to Jasper's side, sighing pitifully, "There are couples everywhere. I won't go to the front. You're just going to keep a lonely person like me?" Jasper raised her brows and moved her seat to the side, giving him more space. "Jasper, you're still the kind-hearted one." Hualing shifted his seat and immediately praised her. Jasper lightly said, "It's not for you. It's just that I can see the little master better from this angle." Hualing followed her gaze and as expected, he saw the little master dancing around the little princess. Hualing felt that his heart was deeply hurt again. A faint smile flashed across Jasper's eyes. The courtyard was empty, with a platform half the height of a person placed in the middle. There were only long tables and chairs on the four sides. 2 people to a table, and the seats were randomly chosen. There was no priority. But because Xiao came late, there were only 2 seats left. Thus, they sat between Ethereal and Little and Kong. Xiao sat close to Ethereal, Gong Sun Shui sat close to Little and Kong, and Higashio Motetsu and Tao Tao sat opposite them. Tao Tao had been holding a grudge against Dongting Wangyu since the beginning. No matter how he tried to tease her, she refused to acknowledge him. Hence, she was looking around casually. It was at this moment that her gaze landed on Gong Suanxue. Among all of them, she was the most unfamiliar with Gong Sun Shui. She had never paid much attention to people who were not important to her. But now, because she was bored, her eyes were more focused. She noticed a touch of green in Gong Sun Shui's eyes. Although it was very faint and others couldn't see it, she was trained in goo poison, so she could see it at a glance. She blinked. There was something wrong with this girl's body. Previously, she seemed to have heard from Qingyan that she quite liked this pure and innocent lady. Why not wait until the banquet was over and tell Qingyan about it? After all, she was someone who saved people based on her mood. If it was Qingyan's friend, she could lend a helping hand. Although Chu Qingyan knew that Tao Tao knew medicine, she didn't know what she was good at. With Ethereal and Yen Luo taking care of her, she forgot about it. Xiao didn't know that Tao Tao's specialty was different from Ethereal and Yen Luo. He didn't know if she could cure Gong Sun Shui. Higashio Motetsu didn't know about Gong Sun Shui's illness. So the person who could cure Gong Sun Shui's illness was right in front of him, but he didn't know. At this time, Gong Sun Shui felt someone's gaze on her. She looked in the direction of the gaze, but the other party had already retracted his gaze and was playing with the zither. Although Xiao was talking to Ethereal, his attention was on the ice beauty. She couldn't hide anything from him. He looked over and couldn't help but smile. That little girl is called Tao Tao. She's a friend that young Master Dongting brought over. She has a good relationship with my sister-in-law. If you like, I'll introduce her to you after the banquet. Gongsun Shui didn't have that intention, but since he said it, there was no harm in getting to know her. Anyway, after today, she and Xiao wouldn't have such a leisurely time, so she went along with him. At the same time, as the host of today's banquet, Hualing straightened his clothes and walked up the stage. Everyone burst out laughing. They didn't expect Hualing, who wasn't afraid of anything, to be nervous. Hualing rubbed his nose. What was there to be afraid of about killing enemies and fighting monsters? But hosting a program was not the same thing. Before, he did not want to accept it no matter what, but with a single look from his master, he could only accept it with tears in his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that the little princess had rehearsed for him, he might have already collapsed onto the ground. Life is like a play. It's fate that brings us together. Meeting is fate, and knowing each other is fate. Gentlemen, ladies, I'm very happy that everyone is gathered here to participate in today's banquet. I am the host, Hualing. Hualing recited all the lines the young princess gave him with his excellent memory. Although he stuttered in the beginning, he became much smoother towards the end. This was the first time a banquet could be held like this. There was even a host. It was quite refreshing to say that he was the host of the event. When Chu Qingyan clapped, everyone followed suit. Hualing gained confidence. He straightened his back and continued, "Today's banquet is divided into several parts. The first is to reward, the second is to play, and the third is to eat. As the name suggests, there will be a talent show, interactive games, and delicious food." Eating, drinking, and playing were all available. Everyone's eyes lit up as they impatiently waited for Hualing to begin. Alright, the first round will be the talent show. Let's welcome our first performer, Little Master and Kong, to perform a somersault. When Hualing finished speaking, other than Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su, everyone was very surprised. Little Kong was also going to perform? Because the program list was confidential, everyone only knew what they were going to perform. They didn't know what the others were going to perform. With this arrangement, it was even more surprising. Chu Qingyan swept her eyes over everyone present and laughed. "Come, open your eyes. I'll let you all broaden your horizons and enjoy a modern ancient banquet." When little Kong heard the announcement, his eyes lit up. He immediately came down from his mother's embrace and said confidently, "Daddy, Mommy, watch this baby show off his skills." After saying that, he walked with his short legs and prepared to climb up the stage. When Hualing saw this, he immediately carried the little devil king up. Chapter 1604. Before Xiao Kong could perform, the crowd gave him a warm round of applause. After standing still, Xiao Kong bowed to the crowd with his hands clasped in front of his chest. His dignified appearance made him look like a child of wealth, making him extremely likable. He first winked mischievously at his parents, then nodded at the drummer at the side. Soon, the sound of drums could be heard. Xiao Kong was dressed in a neat outfit and was very relaxed. He nodded his head, supported himself with his hands, and somersaulted a few times, causing everyone to laugh and clap. Did they think that he only knew how to do this? He retreated to a corner and ran quickly. With both hands on the ground, he somersaulted 5 or 6 times in the air, then somersaulted 5 or 6 times in the reverse direction. His movements were very standard and very fast. It was impossible to tell that he was a 2-year-old child. After Xiao Kong stabilized himself, the crowd burst into applause. As expected of my elder brother's child, he has the demeanor he had back then. Xiao clapped happily. Gongsun Shui, who was sitting at the side, watched as Xiao Kong bowed to the crowd gracefully, then jumped off the stage and happily pounced on his father, Xiao Su. Chu Qingyan and her husband were not stingy with their praises for him. She had never seen a child of a master perform on stage for others. Furthermore, there were so many servants present. However, not only did everyone support him, they also sincerely encouraged him. Xiao Kong was very well educated, which surprised her. However, the crowd's reaction and this banquet surprised her even more. She had attended many banquets, but she had never been so lively and relaxed. These people really made people want to get close to them. Xiao Yao did not see any movement from the person beside him, so he turned his head in confusion. However, he saw the nostalgia in the Ice Beauty's eyes. He could not help but narrow his eyes. Why would the Ice Beauty have such emotions? At this time, the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu went on stage. The two of them were performing a monkey show. What was a monkey show? It was similar to Sun Wukong's stick trick. The two of them were especially good at imitating. Coupled with their tacit understanding over the years, their cooperation was flawless, making everyone laugh. They were simply clowns. In order to support his imperial grandfather, Xiao Yao temporarily put his doubts to the back of his mind. He would ask her about it later. It was Ethereal's turn. He used a bamboo leaf that he had casually plucked to play a tune. Just like his name, Ethereal. Next, it was Yen Luo's turn. She brought a basket of herbs onto the stage. I'm not good at martial arts, so I won't embarrass myself. I'm also not good at playing musical instruments. However, I have a basket of herbs here. If you can determine their effects based on the information I've provided, you'll receive a healing medicine I've prepared for the winner. However, for the sake of fairness, the medical students present are not allowed to participate. This rule was clearly targeted at Ethereal to prevent others from saying that she was biased. Little did he know that Tao Tao had also silently forfeited. Everyone was very excited to be able to guess and win a prize. In the end, Higashio Motetsu, retired emperor, and Xiao Yao each guessed one possibility and each received a bottle of healing medicine. Xiao Yao felt that he had no use for it. After receiving it, he stuffed it to the Ice Beauty beside him. Keep it to protect yourself. Yen Luo's medicine is hard to buy outside. The Ice Beauty opened the bottle and sniffed it. Surprise appeared on her face. Although she didn't know much about medicine, she was used to dealing with these kinds of medicine. She could tell whether it was good or bad with just a sniff. This bottle of medicine was probably something that even the best Chinese medicine practitioner around her couldn't develop. She looked at Qing Yen Luo, who was calmly walking down the stage, and then looked at the other two winners. It seemed that everyone was used to her medicine. She realized that she was becoming more and more fussy after being with them. She couldn't help but silently close the bottle and put it in her sleeve. It was almost Tao Tao's turn. She stuffed her guqin into the arms of the person beside her. I'm not playing. Higashio Motetsu was admiring the sword dance on the stage when a guqin suddenly appeared in his arms. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and tease her out of habit. What's wrong? Do you think your guqin sounds as bad as a crow's? Tao Tao puffed up her cheeks. If you're willing to play with me, I'll play. Who said her guqin was bad? Her guqin skills were the most outstanding in the sect. He still had a smile on his face. Didn't I say that I don't know how to play? Why are you throwing a tantrum? Tao Tao took a deep breath, but she still couldn't calm the anger in her heart. I'm not throwing a tantrum. Then play with me once. Higashio Motetsu's expression dimmed. Tao Tao, I don't want to repeat it a third time. The anger in Tao Tao's heart finally dissipated. She knew that she might not be able to hear the sound of his flute in this lifetime. At this time, Hua Ling had already started announcing her program. Tao Tao stood up. Her long hair hung on both sides, covering her face. She laughed at herself. Since that was the case, she shouldn't pester him. This wasn't their sex style. Her guqin was still in his arms. Higashio Motetsu looked at the somewhat lonely figure. He felt a little regretful, but he didn't want her to use this method to prove her importance in his heart. Tao Tao. When the words came out, he didn't know what to say. At this time, the disappointed girl in his eyes suddenly raised her head. The gloominess in her eyes was dispelled by the sunlight, and it was so bright that people didn't dare look straight at her. She tilted her head and revealed a brilliant smile. Higashio Motetsu, I'll dance for you. You have to watch carefully. He never thought that with her personality, it was already a surprise that she didn't fling her sleeves and leave. He never thought that she would even smile and say that she would dance for him. Watching her jump onto the stage, his mind was still filled with her dazzling smile from before. It was like the dark clouds had scattered, revealing a brilliant ray of light. Without any hindrance, it directly entered his heart. He reached out to his chest. There, it seemed to be beating irregularly. Tao Tao stood in the center of the stage and gracefully faced the crowd. Then she bent down and pulled off the cloth around her ankles, revealing a string of golden bells. When she stood up, the bells on her wrists were also revealed. With her movements, the clear sound of the bells rang out. Her eyes looked at the astonished Higashio Motetsu. The corners of her mouth slightly curved, but her eyes were slightly bitter. She, the little magic doctor, never prepared for both sides because she was a confident person. Since she left the sect, she had never failed again. But in front of this man, all her pride and confidence could only be put away. If he was a city, then she was a failure who had repeatedly attacked the city. In fact, she never expected that he would pick up the flute again. She raised her hand and made a dancing gesture. Higashio Motetsu, although I have always failed, I will try to conquer you again. One day, you will be my city, and I will be the only one who owns it. The bell rang and danced. Chapter 1605. When she revealed the bells on her wrists and ankles, Higashio Motetsu finally understood that she already knew that he wouldn't play with her. That was why she had made other preparations, but he still disappointed her. He looked at the stage. She walked briskly, her graceful figure accompanied by the crisp sound of the bells. She spun and jumped. Her gaze never left him for every movement. Just as she said, she was dancing for him alone. There had never been a moment that made him feel so lost and his heart beat faster. Sister Tao Tao is dancing well. Xiao Kong clapped his two chubby hands and smiled. Chu Qingyan looked at the graceful dance on the stage, then turned to look at Dong Ting's focused expression. Her eyes curved. This pair was really pleasing to the eye. The last performance was Xiao Yao. Gong Sun Shui didn't expect him to have prepared a performance as well. She looked at him in surprise. Xiao Yao didn't go on stage immediately. Instead, he looked down at her with a happy smile. What do you like to hear? Gong Sun Shui was a little confused. Wasn't the performance already decided? Why did he ask her now? Just do what you want. He found it quite interesting to tease her. At least her face was no longer so cold. The smile on his face widened. I'm just asking. Just listen to me. Don't take it seriously. Only then did Gong Sun Shui realize that she had been fooled by him. She glared at him coldly. Xiao Yao immediately stopped when he was ahead. Otherwise, if he really provoked her, he would suffer. I'll go on stage first. I'm going to be late. With that, he quickly slipped away. Gong Sun Shui snorted coldly, as if she was the one holding him up. Although Xiao Yao had slipped away, in the eyes of outsiders, he walked like flowing water, still looking carefree and unruly. The folding fan in his hand had disappeared and was replaced by a flute. He smiled brightly and held the flute to his lips. His gaze circled around the ice beauty's body. His fingers moved slightly and the sound of the flute flowed out. The melody was melodious and smooth, and one could even hear the sound of wild geese chirping. In the blink of an eye, it was clear and cheerful, as if there was a stream flowing in front of one's eyes. After a while, the sound was distant and vast, as if one was in an endless grassland with blue sky and white clouds, making one feel relaxed and happy. Gong Sun Shui originally thought that this person was usually sloppy and didn't have any talent. At most, he was a little smart. She didn't expect him to have such superb skills. The sound that came out of the flute was mellow, sometimes light, sometimes distant, and sometimes high and sometimes low. It was like sitting on a clear winter day and watching the clouds. It made people feel at peace. When she was learning martial arts, her master had once told her that swordsmanship was the same, but different people could produce different sounds. This was related to the person's state of mind and character. From this, it could be seen that if one did not have a certain amount of experience and an open mind, one would not be able to produce such a beautiful sound. Her gaze was fixed on the person on the stage. A gentle breeze blew his clothes, and his hair danced in the wind. He raised his arms slightly, and there was a smile on his face. In his eyes, there was a vast green mountain, and in his tune, there were thousands of miles of flowing clouds. He stood alone in the world. The young man in green was like the wind, upright and capricious, as if he didn't stop for anyone. She still didn't know him well. How could such a person be as unconventional as he appeared? Just like what Chu Qingyan said, everyone had a mask. What they showed was only the side they wanted others to see. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. If there was time, she wanted to dig out the other side of this man. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. Just as she was immersed in the melody, he came down and sat beside her. He didn't look like the young master Xiao just now at all. He asked, "How was it? Were you stunned by what you heard?" "I'm not boasting, but among our emperor. No, among our brothers, my playing is unrivaled." Xiao almost spilled the beans. He immediately corrected himself, but Gong Sun Shui, who was in a trance, didn't notice. After a moment of silence, she praised, "It's very good." Xiao, who still wanted to boast and show off, was stunned by this praise. Soon, a bright smile appeared on his face, and it seemed like his smile was growing bigger and bigger. Gong Sun Shui saw his silly appearance and couldn't help shaking her head. It seemed like she shouldn't praise him in the future. His tail was about to fly to the sky. Although Xiao was the last performer, when Hualing went on stage to prepare for the next segment, Father Chu became unhappy. "White impermanence, I want to see your performance. Hurry. When his father-in-law said this, Xiao Su looked over. Hualing, who had received his master's silent order, wanted to cry. He only knew how to fight and kill. How could he know how to perform? But with his master and the old man looking at him like this, he couldn't back down. He could only agree. Hualing cupped his fists. "This one is untalented, so I'll show everyone a set of fist techniques." After saying this, he got into a horse stance and began to practice his fist techniques. In the blink of an eye, the person who had been smiling just now became serious. Every punch was powerful, and the sound of it breaking through the air could be heard. Gong Sun Shui's attention was immediately drawn over. Her gaze instantly focused. From the way these people usually walked, she could tell that their martial arts weren't low. But she didn't expect that just a casual set of fist techniques would be so solid and profound. If these people were really opponents, then the Moon Clan was in danger. When this thought flashed through her mind, she couldn't help but tighten her grip. Previously, she had wanted to hide here for a while to avoid those assassins. However, after staying here for a long time, she realized that the guards here were all experts who were not inferior to her. She suddenly became curious about their identities. To be able to have so many experts as guards, these people must not be ordinary people. She had been in North Korea for so long, but she had never heard of any aristocratic family with such strong strength. She wanted to know more about them so that she could find out their identities. Little did she know that these people were all slippery loaches, and there were no signs that she could follow. Later on, she gave up. She couldn't do anything by herself. But she didn't expect that these people were actually involved with the Japanese. She had been too careless. She shouldn't have stayed here because of a moment of impulse. She should have gone back to take charge of the situation. At this time, Xiao saw that her expression was a little strange. He couldn't help but frown worriedly. "Are you feeling unwell? Is it a wound? Do you want Yen Luo to take a look?" Hearing Xiao's concerned and anxious tone, Gong Sun Shui realized that she had revealed her emotions. Fortunately, this person didn't think too much. She shook her head and said calmly, "It's nothing. I was just thinking about something and got distracted. Let's continue watching." Xiao wanted to say something, but Hualing had already finished his fist and started the next segment. He couldn't help but purse his lips, and a complicated expression flashed through his eyes. Chapter 1606. This segment was an interactive game that was mainly about playing around. Although it was a game, no one present had ever heard of the way it was played. They couldn't help but express their curiosity and anticipation. The game's name was gesticulating. The rules were that two people were in a team. One was responsible for gesticulating while the other was responsible for guessing. Within the allotted time, the team that guessed more would win. Once Hualing finished explaining the rules, everyone was eager to try it out. Xiao Yao wanted to pull the ice beauty onto the stage, but at this time, the retired emperor came over and directly pulled him away. He cried out, "Grandfather, what are you looking for me for? Don't you have a partner?" The retired emperor waved his hand and said with a smile, "Chu Huayan went to find his wife. I'm the only one left. Everyone else is in pairs, so it's not good to separate them. So as my grandson, this is the best time for you to fulfill your filial piety." Xiao Yao wanted to cry but had no tears. "My God, you didn't separate others, but ran over to separate your grandson. What kind of logic was this?" But at this time, his imperial grandfather had already nimbly gone to Hualing to sign him up. What else could he say? He could only turn his head and cast an apologetic look at the ice beauty. When Gong Suanxue met his gaze, her expression was still without a ripple. But when she thought of how he couldn't resist when the old grandfather pulled him over, it was really funny. The game segment began. The first group was Qing Yanluo and Ethereal. Hualing ordered someone to set up the hourglass. When the hourglass turned, the competition began. With many years of tacit understanding, Qing Yanluo and Ethereal completed 8 words in the allotted time. The two looked at each other and smiled. They happily stood on the other side of the stage, ready to watch the other's performance. The second group was the retired emperor and Xiao Yao's turn. Xiao Yao was pushed over to gesticulate. Before the competition began, the retired emperor waved his fist at him. "Good grandson, be serious. I want to take the first prize." Xiao Yao replied energetically, "I know." The servant had already taken the board and written on it. When the competition began, he began to flip through the pages. The first was drinking wine. Xiao Yao gestured with a cup. The retired emperor immediately said, "Gem." Xiao Yao shook his head and gestured with a drinking gesture. The retired emperor immediately said, "Sword swallowing." Everyone who knew the answer was amused. Xiao Yao continued to shake his head. Then he walked a few steps and swayed, indicating that he was drunk. At this time, the retired emperor somewhat understood. Drunk? Xiao Yao immediately nodded and made a drinking gesture. The retired emperor said resolutely, "Drink." The second was dancing. The corners of Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. What kind of question was this? He waved his hand and moved his legs. Retired emperor, exercise. He frowned and decided to go all out. Hence, he softened his movements and imitated Tao Tao's dance moves. Retired emperor, epilepsy. Seeing this scene, everyone was about to burst out laughing. It was too funny. Below the stage, Gong Sun Shui was also amused by Xiao Yao's behavior. Her cold face cracked into a rare smile. Xiao Yao originally wanted to give up, but when he saw the ice-cold beauty's rainbow-like smile, he couldn't help but think that if he could make her smile, he would be willing to do anything stupid. It was no wonder that King Yu of Zhou used a beacon fire to make her smile. Today, he was really obsessed, but he was willing to do it. In the end, the retired emperor still couldn't guess the answer. However, until the time was up, the grandfather and grandson still managed to answer 9 questions correctly. The result was very good. Finally, it was over. Xiao Yao supported his waist. For the ice-cold beauty, for the game, he really went all out. "I didn't expect my good grandson to be able to dance. It's a pity that your dancing is too difficult to compliment. Otherwise, Grandpa would definitely be able to guess it." When the two of them stood in the corner, retired emperor began to laugh and ridicule him. Xiao Yao knew that his grandfather loved to tease him, but he didn't argue. Because all his thoughts were on the ice-cold beauty. From the moment he started guessing, he realized that the ice-cold beauty was completely focused on the competition. It was obvious that she really liked this segment. When it was over, he would also play this game with her. He believed that with his strong body language and her intelligence, they would be very compatible. The third round was Father and Mother Chu. Father Chu gestured while Mother Chu guessed. Father Chu had always been a creative person, so one could imagine how ridiculous this round was. Everyone's eyes were firmly fixed on it. Chu Qingyan laughed until her stomach hurt. She felt that her father wasn't participating in a game, but was performing a skit. If there was a chance next time, she would personally arrange a few skits for everyone to laugh. The ice-cold beauty sat quietly, watching the fun on the stage. She was suspicious of these people. When Qin Yu came over yesterday, most of her guesses were confirmed. However, at this moment, when she looked at these people who had different personalities, loved each other, and got along well with each other, she felt that such a happy family without any scheming against each other wouldn't be involved in a power struggle at all. She wondered if their information was wrong. Thinking of this, she smiled slightly. Gong Sun Shui, are you deceiving yourself? Or are you trying to excuse them? When did you become like this? Just as the lively scene on the stage was in full swing, Gong Sun Shui saw Qiu Feng waving at her while panting. She was afraid that Qiu Feng would be exposed, so she asked her to stay in the yard. She didn't expect her to appear here. Qiu Feng wouldn't be so flustered if it wasn't something serious. She immediately stopped smiling. Gong Sun Shui said to the servant beside her, "If second master asks, just tell him that I'll be back soon." After saying that, she told the servant not to follow her and walked towards Qiu Feng. Because everyone was attracted by Father Chu's exaggerated gestures, no one noticed what happened here. No one knew when Gong Sun Shui left. Qiu Feng rushed over as soon as she reached the corner. "What's the hurry? Did you forget what I taught you before?" Gong Sun Shui was a bit displeased. Qiu Feng knew that she was being rash, but the situation was urgent and she didn't have time to think. "Sect Master, the High Priest sent someone over just now to say that they've found the true identity of the Xiao family." Gong Sun Shui's eyes narrowed and she slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. She tried to calm down. "Speak." Qiu Feng immediately said, "They're in cahoots with Murong Yunxian. Murong Yun's son fled to another country and these people took him in. This time, they're here to help Murong Yunxian take revenge on our Yu family." Although she already guessed it, Gong Sun Shui was still stunned when she heard such accurate news. The high priest said that since the Xiao family could raise Murong Yunxian to be so outstanding, they definitely aren't small fries. He wants you to leave immediately. Otherwise, if your identity is exposed, your life will be in danger, Qiu Feng said anxiously. "Is that so?" At this moment, a voice interrupted the conversation between the master and servant. The tone was very light, and it was impossible to tell whether the speaker was happy or angry. Qiu Feng immediately pulled out her dagger. "Who is it?" Before Gong Sun Shui could recover from her shock, her eyes widened again when she heard the voice. However, when the man in the green robe with black hair appeared in front of her, she was completely speechless. Chapter 1607. Why are you here? Gong Sun Shui looked at the person who appeared in front of her and pursed her lips. If she didn't calculate the time wrongly, he should still be on the stage watching the fourth team's competition. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come out to meet Qiu Feng so easily. However, she could calculate the time, but she couldn't calculate a person's heart. Because Xiao Yao's mind was on her, no matter how exciting the competition on the stage was, he still put half of his attention on her. So when she suddenly left the stage, he noticed it. Also, he saw Qiu Feng's figure and thought that something big had happened. He was worried and left the stage early. But he didn't expect that as soon as he arrived, he heard Qiu Feng's words that shocked him so much that he couldn't think. Xiao Yao stared at the person in front of him as if he wanted to see through her. Gong Sun Shui also felt his gaze and mocked herself. She didn't expect that after hiding for so long, she still fell short. Qiu Feng didn't expect Xiao Yao to follow her. With the dagger in her hand and the words just now, she knew that she was exposed. So, she immediately moved in front of her sect master. As long as he came forward, she wouldn't be polite. Xiao Yao didn't look at Qiu Feng and didn't care about the sharp dagger pointed at him. He looked at Gong Sun Shui with bright eyes and said slowly, "Sun Shui is your alias, right? Or you?" Smiling was his normal state. It was as if no matter when, he couldn't be stopped from smiling. However, this was the first time she saw him without a smile on his face. It seemed a little distant and cold, as if she couldn't feel any warmth anymore. She closed her eyes and suppressed the chaotic emotions in her heart. When she opened her eyes again, she had already recovered her usual coldness. She said, "I'm Gong Sun Shui, the leader of the Moon Clan and the sect master of the Moon Clan. Gongsun Shui? This name suddenly jumped out from his memory. All right, his royal brother once said that the sect master of the Moon Clan was called this name. Some time ago, she was assassinated and her whereabouts were unknown. He thought about how he saved her the moment they arrived in this town, and she avoided answering the identity of the assassins. It was as if the pearls scattered all over the ground suddenly had a string, stringing them together one by one. Finally, when they were complete, they formed a trap. A trap. So you won't tell me where your family is? You won't let me avenge you or reveal any information about your identity? Xiao lowered his eyebrows and gave a self-deprecating smile. I should have thought of it. I should have thought of it. How could a girl be alone? How could a killer chase after you for no reason? If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't ask. I thought those were your taboos and I shouldn't touch them. I didn't expect that it would end like this. My brother has reminded me so many times, but I chose to believe you and ignored those problems. In the end, he was talking to himself. Gong Xuanxue couldn't bear to see him like this. She looked at him apologetically. She had just raised her head when she saw him looking up. His eyes were distant and unfamiliar. Since you're hiding your identity, why are you still staying? The war between the Sun-Moon race and the Sun-Moon race has already broken out. What are you doing in our little temple instead of taking charge of the overall situation? We can't tolerate a great Buddha like you. The situation was still developing as she expected. Gongsun Shui pursed her lips and looked at him, unable to say a word. Let me answer for her. As soon as he finished speaking, another person appeared in the corner. My brother? Xiao looked at the person in front of him in surprise. Xiao Su looked at Xiao and raised his eyebrows. It was as if he was disdainful of Xiao's stupidity. As expected, the little guy was right. People in love generally had lower IQs. The reason why Sect Master Gongsun stayed was very simple. She was injured and needed treatment. Furthermore, the killers were still looking for her. She had lost contact with her subordinates, so it was the best choice for her to take refuge here. However, as the sect master of a race, her ability to read people's expressions is not weak. She noticed that we were different from the people of North Korea, so she began to suspect our identities. After Xiao Su finished speaking, he raised his eyebrows at Gongsun Shui. Sect Master Gongsun, am I right? Gongsun Shui's body stiffened. Although she hadn't seen this person much, he was able to guess her thoughts so clearly. He was indeed not simple. Gongsun Shui narrowed her eyes and looked at Xiao Su cautiously. That's right. But how did you guess? I don't think I've done anything out of line during this period. Xiao Su put his hands behind his back and said slowly, It's very simple. The timing of your appearance was too sensitive. Furthermore, Xiao is my younger brother. I have to be on guard against the people around him so that he won't be fooled. However, he was fooled in the end. Xiao's mouth twitched. Although he knew that his brother was concerned about him, he felt very embarrassed when he said that. At this time, Xiao Su continued, we found out that Sect Master Yue went missing at the same time as you met second brother. However, this doesn't mean anything. It could be a coincidence. However, when Ethereal was treating you, he noticed that your inner strength was very strong. Furthermore, from your clothes, it could be seen that your background is not ordinary. Later, what really made me suspicious was that you asked Xiao to take in a servant girl. Gongsun Shui didn't think that her mistake would be because of this. Actually, you've already noticed me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have paid attention to these things. It seemed that this person was just as she had expected. He was meticulous and as cunning as a wolf. You can say that. This was an instinct that had been accumulated over many years. However, Xiao Su wouldn't tell her this. If it wasn't for the fact that the little fellow thought highly of second brother and Gongsun Shui, he wouldn't have wasted so much time talking to her. At this time, after listening to the conversation between the two, Xiao had a general understanding of the situation. After being in the palace for so many years, as long as he used his brain a little, it was easy to understand. He originally thought that he had left behind all the scheming and fighting, but he didn't think that he would walk into it again. Moreover, it was when he was unprepared. He laughed lightly, but it didn't reach his eyes. His gaze shot towards the girl in front of him. So all this time, you've been using me? Using him to stay here and investigate, using his affection for her as a cover. These words were like the scorching light of summer, making it impossible for her to hide. Gongsun Shui pursed her lips tightly, but didn't know how to refute. She didn't think this way, but when she did, it was like this. Her silent agreement was no doubt an admission. Xiao Yao laughed lightly and wiped his face, as if to wipe away the defeat and discomfort in his heart. Unfortunately, he still didn't feel good in his heart. He opened his mouth to say something to Gongsun Shui, but at this time, a shout rang through the sky. Assassin! Chapter 1608. That voice came from the direction of the stage. Before the voice had even died away, Xiao Su's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Xiao Yao and Gongsun Shui looked at each other, then followed their royal brother and ran back. Qiu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Su's aura was too strong, and she almost couldn't breathe. She immediately turned around and said, "Sect Master, let's leave while they're not here." Gongsun Shui heard the shouting and killing getting more and more intense. She frowned and said, "Let's go and take a look." Qiu Feng widened her eyes and shouted in disapproval, "Sect Master." Gongsun Shui turned her back to Qiu Feng and said in a low voice, "I can't leave now." After saying that, Gongsun Shui quickly went back the way she came. "But the High Priestess and the others are waiting outside." Qiu Feng muttered. She had no choice but to release the signal and follow. Xiao Su was the first to arrive. He kicked away the two killers who had just walked in front of the little fellow and hugged her to check if she was injured. Chu Qingyan squeezed his hand and shook her head. "I'm fine. Don't forget that my martial arts are not bad." Xiao Su heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the person in front of him could still joke. He naturally knew how good her martial arts were, but things were different now. She had a child in her belly, so she couldn't let her guard down. "Don't move. Leave the rest to me." Afraid that she wouldn't listen, he patted her head and added, "Don't be willful." Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue, indicating that she wouldn't make a move easily. Xiao Su was relieved. Xiao Kong was already in the retired emperor's arms. When he saw that his eldest grandson had returned, he immediately went over with a serious face. "Who are these people? Why are they attacking us for no reason? Could it be that Jean Xian's identity exposed us?" Xiao Su didn't answer. He looked at Xiao Yao, who was walking quickly towards him. He heard every word of what his royal grandfather said. He wanted to ask his royal brother about it, but when he turned around and met his royal brother's gaze, he immediately understood who these people were after. The smile on Xiao Yao's face disappeared. "Royal brother, what should we do?" Xiao Su smiled faintly. "What else can we do? They're already here. How can we let them bully us?" As soon as he said that, the fierce cavalry rushed forward and fought fiercely. Xiao Yao nodded and turned. When Gong Su and Shui returned to the stage, she saw that the crowd was fighting with a group of men in black. Those men looked familiar. Weren't they the men who had tried to kill her before? However, her gaze was quickly attracted by the green-robed figure. Out of so many people, she was able to see him at first glance. He didn't have any weapons. He used his fan as a blade and flipped it around. He shuttled through the crowd with ease and methodically reaped the lives of his opponents. He had a faint smile on his face, but it wasn't his usual arrogant smile, nor was it his usual gentle smile, nor was it a teasing smile. Instead, it was a cold smile that was mixed with the coldness of winter, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. Looking at his smooth movements and killing moves, she suddenly understood why he didn't want to compete with her that day. He said that he wouldn't bully the little girl. She thought he was joking, but she didn't expect that it was true. His martial arts were not inferior to hers. At this moment, the two sides separated. "Who are you? Why are you trespassing?" Hua Ling asked with his sword in hand. The leader of the black-clothed men saw that his side had suffered heavy casualties, while the other side had light injuries. They were all in high spirits. The situation was not good for them. The leader of the black-clothed men stepped forward and said, "We only want one person today. As long as you don't make things difficult for us and let us take her away, we won't be enemies with you." "You want to take someone away from us? Don't even think about it." Turin was by Jean Xian's side. He was in charge of mobilizing the fierce blade cavalry. Hua Ling was the only cavalry leader and spoke on behalf of the cavalry. The leader of the black-clothed men mocked, "Little brat, don't be too arrogant. Don't think that we don't know your identity and your relationship with Murong Yunxian is enough for us to get rid of you. If you don't want to take our kill order, then hand over the person and we won't bother you anymore." Xiao Yao played with the fan in his hand and his smile was a bit annoying. "You say it like you're the ones who have the upper hand. The winner takes all. Do you believe that if we fight for another hour, none of you will be able to escape? Compared to leaving behind a disaster, I'm more willing to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots." Although Xiao Yao was smiling, his last sentence carried a biting cold wind, causing people to tremble with fear. Although they were facing enemies, those who knew Xiao Yao couldn't help looking at him. Did this fellow eat the wrong medicine? Why was he so agitated? Although the leader of the black-clothed men felt a bit guilty, when he thought of the task given to him by his superiors, he angrily shouted, "Where did this brat come from? I won't talk nonsense with you. Are you going to hand over the person or not? Let me give you a piece of advice. A strong dragon can't suppress a local snake. A wise man submits to circumstances. You're the brat. You scolded me, white impermanence, and even scolded me, little fan. Do you want me to beat you into an ugly monster?" Father Chu couldn't help but roll up his sleeves and rush out. Fortunately, Mother Chu had foreseen this and immediately pulled him back. Chu Qingyan stood beside Xiao Su as she raised her eyebrows and sneered, "You keep asking us to hand over the hostage. May I ask who you are after?" Before the leader of the black-clothed men could speak, a figure stood out. "They're after me." "Miss Sun?" Chu Qingyan looked at the girl in white with surprise. The leader of the black-clothed men laughed as if he had thought of something. He looked at the people present as if he was watching a good show. "Miss Sun? You've all been fooled by her. I didn't." "Shut up. You don't have the right to speak here." Xiao Yao reprimanded coldly. The leader of the black-clothed men looked at the fierce cavalry standing around him, but he didn't dare to speak. Cheng Yanluo and the rest looked at Xiao Yao and Gong Suanxue, but no one said anything. At this time, no one would embarrass their own family. Gong Suanxue didn't expect that Xiao Yao would still choose to protect her at this time. She suppressed all her emotions and turned around to face Chu Qingyan and the rest, saying slowly, "He's right. I lied to you. My surname is Gong Sun, and my name is Xue. I'm the current sect master of the Dim Moon sect. I'm indebted to you all for taking care of me these days and investigating your identities. I'm very sorry, but I don't regret it." These words caused a huge commotion. Everyone looked at each other. Jean Xen was fighting the enemy at the front lines, but the leader of the enemy was with them. It was like placing gunpowder beside them. However, after these days of interaction, they didn't know what to say. Gong Suanxue didn't seem to care about their reaction at all. She didn't look at Xiao Yao and turned to the leader of the black-clothed men, saying, "This has nothing to do with them. Don't make things difficult for them. I'll go with you." Chapter 1609. The leader originally thought that it was hopeless, but Gong Sun Xue's words instantly gave him confidence. He nodded without hesitation. "Okay." Just as Gong Sun Xue was about to step forward, a hand stopped her and pulled her back. "Don't even think about taking anyone away from us. I've never been so embarrassed before." Gong Sun Xue didn't expect him to suddenly protect her behind him. She was stunned for a moment. She was actually blocked by him. "Xiao Yao, I'm fine. Let me go with them." She subconsciously tugged at his sleeve. Xiao Yao didn't even turn his head. "Don't try to be brave. We'll deal with you later." This was the first time someone had scolded her for trying to be brave. In fact, she had already thought of a way out. Qing Yu had come to pass the message, which meant that the high priest and the others weren't far away. As long as she left the Xiao residence, The high priest and the others would know. At that time, Xiao Yao and the others wouldn't be implicated. But in front of her, Xiao Yao was like a mountain standing in front of her. It was as if he was blocking the wind and rain in front of her. For a moment, she couldn't refute him. He was already disappointed in her. If he knew her plan, he would probably be angrier and more disappointed. Chu Qingyan glanced at Big Ice beside her. He stood by her side to protect her. He didn't care about anything else and left the situation to Xiao Yao. She suddenly understood and stood to the side to watch. Today, the second brother and the Ice Beauty were the main characters. As spectators, they just had to do their part. The leader couldn't understand why Xiao Yao would protect Gong Sun Shui after being deceived. However, anyone who tried to stop his mission deserved to die. Brat, have you forgotten your identity? You and Murong Yunxian are acquaintances, so you should be her sworn enemy. What do you mean by protecting her today? Do you want to raise a tiger and invite calamity? Aren't you afraid that she'll turn against you? These words made Gong Sun Shui clench her fists. However, the person standing in front of her was as still as a rock. The leader continued, his eyes flashing with hostility. Or do you plan to capture her and send her to the front line to give Murong Yunxian another bargaining chip? Gong Sun Shui seemed to think of something. Her lips turned pale. She had lied to him and everyone. With their relationship with Murong Yunxian, they wouldn't let her go easily. Feeling the emotional fluctuations of the person behind him, Xiao Yao laughed at himself. As expected, she didn't believe him. At this time, Xiao Su felt that he had given them enough time. He made a gesture with his cold eyes. There was no killing intent in them, but it was chilling. It's about time. Don't waste time talking nonsense with them. When Hua Ling and the others received the order and were about to make a move, there was a sudden rush of footsteps. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. Was there going to be more scenes? Dozens of people wearing blue and white clothes appeared in front of everyone. Needless to say, they were from the Moon Clan. The old man in the lead walked quickly towards Gong Sunshui with a pear blossom walking stick in his hand. He then bowed to Gong Sunshui and said, "Lan Si is late. Please forgive me, Sect Master. I'll come back to receive my punishment after I've dealt with these assassins." After confirming that the other party wasn't the Ice Beauty's enemy, Xiao Yao had already quietly retreated, revealing the person behind him. Gong Sunshui immediately helped High Priest Lan Si up and said, "High Priest, please don't say that. You just came out of seclusion and you're already involved in this kind of thing. I'm very ashamed. Sect Master is in trouble. How can this old man stand by and watch?" Lan Si immediately turned to look at the black-clothed leader. "Your flowing cloud pavilion has guts. You actually dare to make a move on Sect Master." Although the other party had many people, the black-clothed leader wasn't afraid. He looked at the people on both sides and said with a smile, "High Priest should know that our flowing cloud pavilion only recognizes money and not people. When we receive money, we'll help. However, we were careless this time and missed the chance to capture Sect Master Yu. We'll let you off this time. See you again." After speaking, the black-clothed leader waved his hand and brought everyone to retreat quickly. The black-clothed leader calculated that with the Xiao clan present, the Yu sect wouldn't make a move on him because they were worried that the Xiao clan would turn around and attack them. So if they didn't escape now, when would they? Once the black-clothed people retreated, only Xiao Yao and the High Priest were left on the scene. Unknowingly, the two sides had already become enemies. Hua Ling looked at the scene and asked softly, "Master, what should we do?" "Listen to Second Master." Xiao Su took a chair and helped the little fellow to sit down. Then he also sat down at the side. His expression was indifferent, as if the situation in front of him was just a fight between two children. There wasn't anything interesting about it at all. Hua Ling let out a and scratched his head in confusion. Then he heard his master say gently to the little princess consort, "This angle is the best for sunbathing." Master still had the mood to joke around at a time like this? And the worst thing was that the little princess consort actually nodded in agreement. When he heard his royal brother say that he had full control over the fierce cavalry, Xiao Yao understood. From the start, when he faced off with the black-clothed leader, It was his royal brother who had intentionally facilitated it. Now, he was even giving him a chance to settle the matter between him and the Ice Beauty. But now that everyone was watching, how could he have a good talk with the Ice Beauty? You guys are in cahoots with Murong Yunxian. You guys actually want to take over our Yu clan's territory. What wishful thinking. When Qiu Tong said this angrily, Gong Sun Shui knew that the window paper between her and Xiao Yao that had not been broken yet was no longer there. She was the leader of the Yu clan, and he was Murong Yunxuan's man. At this moment, they were only opponents. This was the reason why she had refused to admit it when he had asked her if they were friends. Because she had already expected this moment to come. Destiny made fools of people. Everything was already set in stone. Xiao Yao opened his fan and smiled as usual. Your words are a bit unkind. Jin Exon, no, the Murong Yunxian you speak of, was originally the future leader of the Sun Clan. If it wasn't for your Yu clan's despicable methods, the Sun Clan wouldn't have fallen into your hands. Speaking of which, who is the one who is trying to take over whose territory? Qin Yu sneered. The winner is king, the loser is a bandit. The Sun Clan didn't have the ability to protect their territory, who can they blame? Xiao Yao's lips curled into a smile, like the brightest star in the sky. Oh, then according to your words, Murong Yunxian is just taking back what belongs to him. The winner is king, the loser is a bandit. Everyone is relying on their own abilities. How can you accuse us of being in cahoots? You can't just let the officials set fires and not let the common people light lamps. Who was Xiao Yao? He was known for his sophistry. With his silver tongue, he didn't have to worry about refuting the other party. Qin Yu and Qiu Tong were speechless. Even Lan Si, who disdained to talk to Xiao Yao, was so angry that her face turned green. Father Chu clapped his hands. Little fan, you're awesome. Cheng Yenluo and the others smiled. Chapter 1610. However, there were two people who couldn't laugh. One was Gong Sun Shui, and the other was Xiao Yao himself. At a time like this, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. No matter who Gong Sun Shui was, he was the one who caused this. He couldn't let anyone insult his family. But by doing so, he would also hurt Gong Sun Shui. This was what it meant to hurt one's enemy at the expense of one's own men. Gong Sun Shui knew that he was telling the truth. She didn't participate in the battle back then, but she admitted that the previous sect master had made a lot of mistakes. However, as the leader of the Yu clan, she couldn't admit it even if she was wrong. She raised her hand to stop her subordinates and looked at Xiao Yao. Although he still looked carefree and cheerful, she could feel that his aura had changed. It was a powerful aura that came from a superior. It wasn't something an ordinary person had. Although she knew that he was related to Murong Yunxian, she didn't know his true identity. If he came from another country, he might not be from a noble family, but a royal family member. However, this wasn't the time to figure it out. She calmed herself down and said, "Let's talk." Xiao Yao's eyes darkened when he heard this. His gaze stopped at a plum tree not far away. He said lightly, "Talk about what? What else was there to talk about?" He laughed at himself silently in his heart. Gong Sun Shui couldn't see his expression and didn't know what he was thinking. "Let us go. What are your conditions?" Qiu Tong couldn't help but mutter, "Sect master, they're rebels. Why do we have to negotiate with them? At most, we'll fight them. I don't believe we can't beat them." Although they didn't have many people, they weren't any less than the Xiao clan. She didn't believe they couldn't subdue them. Qin Yu immediately covered her mouth and scolded softly, "Shut up. The sect master has her reasons. Don't interrupt. Didn't you see that the high priestess didn't say anything?" Qiu Tong wasn't the only one who didn't understand. Everyone else was as well. However, they chose to listen to the sect master's orders. The high priestess glanced at the fierce cavalry and then at her own people. She didn't need to fight to know that she was no match for them. These people were well-trained and had powerful martial arts. Even the Flowing Cloud Pavilion, who was known as the #1 assassin in North Korea, was no match for them. Clearly, the sect master had seen through it as well. Therefore, he chose to negotiate after assessing the situation. However, the current situation was obviously not in their favor. This was because they were in the Xiao clan's territory. Moreover, although the other party did not have many people, they were skilled. One of them was equivalent to 10 of them. If Xiao Yao was unwilling to negotiate, they had no choice but to fight to the death. No matter what, the sect leader could not fall into the hands of the Xiao clan. Otherwise, the Moon clan would really be finished. At this time, Higashio Motetsu crossed his arms and leaned against the table, laughing mockingly. Can you shrimp soldiers and crab generals compare to the famous fierce cavalry? What an arrogant fool. Let's not talk about how many people you brought. Just based on your identities and the fact that this is the Sun clan's territory, there are plenty of people who want your lives. So, don't be so arrogant. Read more books, practice more martial arts, and look in the mirror more often to see if your face is still there. Higashio Motetsu's words caused the Moon clan's people's expressions to change. Ever since they unified North Korea more than 10 years ago, they had never received such blatant provocation. Qin Yu was full of vigor. She drew her sword and charged forward. Who do you think you are? Our sect master is speaking. There's no room for you to interrupt. After she said that, Gong Sun Shui and the rest reacted. She was already in front of them, and it was too late to stop her. They probably didn't think that the usually calm Qin Yu would have such an impulsive moment. However, Xiao Yao and the others didn't pay any attention to Qin Yu's aggressive attack. It was as if they didn't see it at all. Higashio Motetsu smirked. He raised his leg and accidentally kicked Qin Yu's abdomen. She flew out and landed heavily in front of Lan Si and the rest. You overestimate yourself. His voice wasn't loud, but it spread throughout the entire courtyard and landed heavily on the hearts of Qin Yu and the rest. Qiu Tong and Qiu Feng didn't have time to be shocked. They immediately went forward to help Qin Yu up and check that he wasn't injured. Just a casual move was enough to send the leader of Gong Sun Shui's personal guards flying. How terrifying was this person's martial arts? Gong Sun Shui didn't expect that there were so many hidden talents in the Xiao family. Even Higashio Motetsu, who was usually sloppy, wasn't a simple character. Higashio Motetsu's kick was like a slap to their faces. They looked at each other and suddenly understood why the suzerain chose to negotiate instead of fighting. It was because they were no match for Qin Yu at all. In fact, Higashio Motetsu felt wronged. He hated it when his friends were bullied. If it was before, he would definitely beat them until they vomited blood. However, Qin Yan was pregnant. He didn't want to see blood, so he controlled his strength. If Qin Yu knew the truth, she would probably vomit blood. Gong Sun Shui immediately ordered people to take Qin Yu away. She looked a bit pale. She cupped her hands and said to Xiao Yao and the rest, "It's my fault. Please forgive me." Hearing her formal words and distant tone, Xiao Yao's smile became more and more sarcastic. "It's okay." Chu Qingyan, who was watching from the side, poked her big ice block's arm and said softly, "Second brother should be very sad now." Xiao Su glanced at the people standing nearby and snorted. He asked for it. Chu Qingyan shook her head. "You can't say that. He doesn't know where it came from." Xiao Su pinched her face and didn't say anything else. He probably agreed with her. At this moment, the negotiation was still going on. Gong Sun Shui seemed to not see his smile and continued, "If you want money, just say it." "We don't lack money." Xiao Yao shook his head. What a big tone. There shouldn't be anyone in this world who dared to say that they didn't lack money. However, thinking of what happened just now, the Serene Moon sect people still chose to keep quiet. "Then what do you want?" Lan Si narrowed her eyes and said in an unfriendly tone. Xiao Yao chuckled. "We never wanted anything. You're thinking too much. Don't use your power to bully others." Qiu Tong said hatefully. Xiao Yao laughed even more arrogantly. "If you want to use your power, you have to have power. Moreover, isn't it more appropriate for you to use these words?" Gong Sun Shui, who had been calm all this while, saw that this person was still stubborn after saying so much. She couldn't help but feel anxious. "Xiao Yao, what do you want to do? If you're angry at me, Don't take it out on others and make things difficult for them. At this time, Xiao, who had not looked at her all this while, seemed to have some ripples in his eyes when he heard that. However, he suppressed it. When he met Gong Sun Xue's gaze, there were no ripples. You can leave. Chapter 1611. The moment these words came out, the aggressive Tranquil Moon sect group was stunned. They all exchanged glances, not knowing how to react. Gong Sun Xue was the same. You're saying that you're letting us go? She was uncertain. Xiao chuckled. That's right. We have no enmity with you. Why should we make things difficult for you? Jin Xen, oh no, Murong Yunxian you're talking about. When we let him do his thing, we said that we won't interfere with your politics. We're only here to have fun. The Tranquil Moon sect was somewhat dubious about this explanation. However, Gong Sun Xue, who had interacted with them for a while, believed it. She looked at the person in front of her. But isn't Murong Yunxian your relative? Xiao chuckled. That's right. But that guy prefers to take revenge himself. Then, Miss Gong Sun, we've never thought of hurting you. Whether we know your identity or not, we've already treated you as a friend. The conflict between the Sun and Moon clans has nothing to do with us. If there are no accidents, we won't interfere. So, don't worry. Compared to scheming, we're more inclined to fight fairly. Chu Qingyan's clear voice sounded. Only then did the dim Moon sect members notice the beautiful girl sitting at the back. Friend? This word struck Gong Sun Xue's heart. She couldn't help but tremble slightly. She turned to look. Chu Qingyan was smiling kindly at her without any hostility. The Xiao clan was so powerful and had such strong support. They actually said that they wouldn't interfere with the politics of the Sun and Moon clans. Lan Si and the rest were delighted. So, you can leave. After Xiao finished speaking, Hualing ordered everyone to keep their weapons and leave. The door of the Xiao clan was also opened. It was as if they were really sending the guests away. Although I really want you to stay for our banquet, I don't think you're in the mood. So, take care. Come and play when you're free. Chu Qingyan smiled and waved at Gong Sun Xue. However, everyone knew that they would be strangers once they stepped out of this door. The relationship between the Sun and Moon clans was there. No one could cross it. Everyone please. Hualing Jasper stood on both sides and extended her hand to politely invite them in. All of this was too unexpected. It was as if they had already prepared for the worst to face the flood and ferocious beasts, but the other party said that they were not here to take their lives, and even kindly let them pass. This was simply too surprising. Lan Si said to the silent Gong Sun Xue, "Sect leader, let's go. There are still many things waiting for you to deal with." Actually, he should be worried that the Xiao clan would go back on their word, so he should leave as soon as possible to avoid any more trouble. Gong Sun Xue pursed her lips. When she looked at Xiao again, the place where he had been standing was already empty. Her expression changed slightly. She looked around, but she only had time to see the corner of a blue robe fluttering in the wind. Then, the person had disappeared. After this incident, she and Xiao might never meet again. She mocked herself in her heart and then bowed to the Xiao family. Thank you for taking care of me during this time. See you again. With that, she turned around resolutely and left with the Tranquil Moon sex group. After exiting the Xiao family's door, Lan Si and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Qiu Feng said with lingering fear, "Sect leader, if the Xiao family really doesn't interfere, it will only be beneficial to us." While everyone was rejoicing, Gong Sun Xue did not think so. If not for the fact that they thought that Murong Yunxian could take charge, the Xiao family would not have made such a promise so easily. Hence, Murong Yunxuan's side could not be underestimated. Gong Sun Xue turned back to look at the Xiao family's mansion. Many scenes flashed past her mind. Finally, it stopped at the last moment when Xiao looked at her. His clear eyes were filled with disappointment. Many complicated emotions surged in her heart. "Let's go." Gong Sun Xue left these words behind and strode forward, leaving the mansion behind her. Qiu Tong touched the back of her head. "Why do I feel that sect leader's mood is very low?" Xiao Feng, who had stayed in the Xiao family for a period of time, sighed faintly. She could not tell them that it was because sect leader felt guilty. Hence, she shut her mouth tightly, shook her head, and quickly followed. After the destruction just now, the entire courtyard needed to be cleaned and tidied up. Hence, Chu Qingyan announced that the banquet would be temporarily suspended and would be held next time. As for the last segment of the banquet, the delicacies would be served at tonight's banquet. Then, she ordered Jasper to lead people to start cleaning up. Regarding today's incident, no one said anything. It was as if two groups of uninvited guests were just going through the motions. Hence, everyone returned to their own courtyards and looked forward to tonight's banquet. After everyone left, Chu Qingyan crossed her arms and looked at the person in front of her with a half-smile. Seeing her interrogative look, Xiao Su quickly understood what she wanted to ask. Without waiting for her to speak, he took the initiative to confess. I have always suspected Gong Xunshue's identity. However, you were pregnant, so I did not tell you. I was worried that it would affect you and the child. I didn't think that she would be the sect leader of the Tranquil Moon sect. She was a little surprised. Actually, what her identity is has nothing to do with us. It's just that she provoked second brother. Xiao Su's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Big Ice Cube was indeed protective. Clearly, it was second brother who provoked her, okay? So, you left for a while just now because of this matter? She did not even notice that someone had left just now. Xiao Su did not deny it. He had already sent people to keep an eye on her. Hence, when she informed the outside world, he already knew. Chu Qingyan thought that it was just as she had expected. Big Ice Cube had grown up in scheming and fighting, so he had his own set of judgment standards. Hence, it was normal that he was sharper than others. However, she touched her chin. There were so many obvious details. If it was in the past, she would definitely have noticed it. However, she did not notice anything now. She had to admit that pregnancy made one dumb for 3 years. She held his hand and looked worried. But I am a bit worried about second brother. Although he didn't say anything, I can feel that he is very sad. In the past few years, she had spent time with Xiao Yao and found that he was an optimistic and carefree person. She rarely saw him worry about anything, but she also rarely saw him care about anything. He was only interested in everything for a short period of time, and there were no girls around him. However, ever since Gong Xunshui appeared, he had changed completely. Although he was still the same person, he seemed to have become more persistent and lived a more vivid life. Xiao Su also thought of this and said calmly, as a man, there are some things that you have to learn to bear and accept by yourself. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. That's easy for you to say. If I had lied to you, used you, and abandoned you in the end, let's see if you would still say that. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes and pulled her into his arms. He said in a dangerous tone, "Don't you dare." Chu Qingyan jumped into his arms and was overjoyed. See, no one would be able to stand it. Chapter 16:12. The banquet began. The few of them gathered around a table and good wine and delicacies were served one after another. These were all made by the chef after Chu Qingyan's description. Every dish was exquisite and novel, unheard of and unseen. For example, small cakes, chicken rolls, Buddha jumps over the wall, hamburgers, pizzas, and other modern Chinese and Western dishes. The wine was made by Chu Qingyan's own shop. When she left the Sichuan, she brought several pots with her. Now they were put to good use. The night sky was dotted with stars, the crescent moon hung high in the sky, the stove was burning, and the room was warm. Just like the saying, a beautiful scene on a good day was a pleasure to the heart. However, after today's incident, everyone present couldn't help but worry about Xiao Yao. After all, he was deceived and provoked. It was a big blow. However, while everyone was worried about Xiao Yao, he was as usual, laughing and joking as if nothing had changed. Good wine. Xiao Yao drank it in one gulp and poured himself another cup. Chu Qingyan watched him drink half a pot and couldn't help but raise her brows. Second brother, are you drowning your sorrows with wine? Xiao Yao was stunned. then smiled and showed his white teeth. How could that be? If not for the wine that Imperial Brother gave me last time, I wouldn't have coveted it for so long. These words didn't seem to be a lie. Chu Qingyan smiled gently. All right, seeing that you admire my wine so much, when we go back, I'll have someone send 30 pots to your residence. I'll also instruct them to send it to you as long as you want to drink it. Xiao Yao's eyes lit up and he said sweetly, I knew that Imperial sister-in-law is the best. If there's anything in the future, just say the word and this subject brother will be at your beck and call, even if it means risking my life. It's just a few pots of wine. You're selling yourself like this. It's not worth it. Chu Qingyan saw that he was playing tricks and couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. I don't have any other requests. I just hope that you can be at ease and live happily every day. Xiao Yao's hand, which was holding the wine jug, paused. Then he said casually, Sister-in-law, I know what you're thinking. I also know that you're concerned about me. It's okay. I'm fine. Anyway, it's not like I haven't been cheated before. I'll get used to it. As he spoke, he casually tossed the cup aside, then picked up the wine jug and poured it into his mouth, as if he was afraid that someone would snatch it from him. Chu Qingyan saw that Jiang Yi was the same as before, and there was nothing wrong with him. However, no one noticed the redness in Xiao Yao's eyes. This grape wine was also the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu's favorite. They were fighting over it. If it weren't for someone stopping them, the two of them would have started fighting again. Chu Machen's father drank in a hurry and was soon drunk. Chu Machen's mother helped him leave the table. The retired emperor had no one to accompany him, so he was a little bored. When he saw his second grandson, he immediately ran over. Second brother, come, let's have a toast. Xiao Yao didn't refuse any of them. Ethereal was already drunk with him, so Cheng Yanluo dragged him away by the ear. However, the person in front of him was his imperial grandfather, so it was a different story. Imperial grandfather, don't drink so much. It's not good to get drunk. The retired emperor glared at him. What? Are you looking down on your imperial grandfather? Back in the day, I didn't get drunk even after 1,000 cups. No one has ever been able to outdrink me. Xiao Yao didn't want to tell him the truth, but it was because he used to be the ruler of a nation. Who would dare to outdo him? All right, I'll drink with you. Only then did the retired emperor pat his shoulder in satisfaction. He filled his cup with wine and said, Come, cheers. The two of them clinked their cups and downed the wine in one gulp. The retired emperor wiped the wine stains on his face, and his expression suddenly became serious. He patted his grandson's arm and said earnestly, Second brother, although you're not young anymore, and your imperial brother and third brother are married and have families, there's no need to be anxious. If your conditions are revealed, I guarantee that your doorstep will be trampled over, so there's no need to hang yourself on a crooked tree. Although that tree is growing quite well, there's plenty of other fish in the sea. What's yours will be yours sooner or later. Perhaps your fate hasn't arrived yet, so there's no need to be anxious. Xiao Yao was stunned. The wine in his cup immediately overflowed. Seeing this, the retired emperor's heart ached and he snatched the wine jug away. Imperial grandfather, you're thinking too much. I'm not anxious at all. The retired emperor hugged the wine jug and looked at him in disbelief. Thinking too much? I think you're the one who's thinking too much. She's so cold that she doesn't even care about you, but you're trying so hard to get close to her. You're a disgrace to our imperial family. Xiao Yao's expression changed slightly. Imperial grandfather, I don't have that kind of interest in her. The retired emperor gave a cold humph. You know very well whether you do or not. Xiao Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Imperial grandfather, do you think I'm sad right now? I don't think so. It's not like you don't know me. I've walked through a field of 10,000 flowers, but not a single leaf stains my body. To me, marriage and love aren't as important as a jug of wine. Hearing this, the Emperor Emeritus looked at him suspiciously. Really? You're not trying to fool grandfather? Really? Xiao Yao revealed an especially sincere expression. The retired emperor couldn't tell if it was true or false, so he simply didn't bother to distinguish. He once again said earnestly, "Grandson, Imperial Grandfather hopes that what you're saying is true, and not a forced smile. In order to comfort Grandfather, you're deceiving yourself. In life, we pay attention to the word, fate. Come if you're compatible, leave if you're incompatible. Your life is still long, so don't stop moving forward just because of a small encounter. Work hard to look forward. Perhaps the person you like, and the person who also likes you, is right in front of you." After saying this, leaving Xiao in a daze, the retired emperor stealthily took the 2 jugs of wine behind him, and then slipped away. When Xiao came back to his senses, the retired emperor was already nowhere to be seen. He held his forehead, shook his head, and finally laughed. His laughter was 3 parts drunken and 7 parts bitter. He picked up the jug of wine and downed it. He didn't know how long he drank, but when he put down the empty jug in his hand, he was already staggering. He shook his head. His alcohol tolerance was really poor. Taking the remaining jug of wine, he staggered out of the courtyard and walked towards the courtyard where Gong Su and Shui used to live. Because of the wine, his usually clear eyes were very bright. He stood in the courtyard and didn't enter the house. He glanced at the furnishings around him, and finally leaped onto a tall tree in the courtyard. He leaned his shoulders against the tree trunk and sat on it. He raised his head and continued to drink. The more he drank, the brighter his eyes became, as if they were washed by water. He had drunk more than his usual limit tonight, but he didn't feel sleepy at all. He wiped his face, shook the empty jug in his hand, and shook his head with a self-deprecating smile. He put the empty jug aside and lay on the tree branch, looking at the bright moon in the sky. He remembered what the Ice Beauty had asked him today. "Xiao, what do you want to do? If you're angry with me, don't take it out on others and make things difficult for them." How could he be angry with her? What right did he have to be angry with her? Didn't he ask for it himself? Even his imperial grandfather said that he was shameless enough to get close to her, so how could he blame anyone else? He raised his hand to cover his eyes, and silently curved his lips. Don't say that a man's heart is as hard as iron? Don't you see the red leaves of a river full of tears? Recently, the little guy didn't like spicy food. Moreover, he often hugged sour plums to eat. This way of eating was simply too scary. However, he didn't listen to her. Every time he wanted to take away her dishes and change them to something lighter, she would look at him pitifully. When he wanted to take away her hidden snacks, such as sour plums and hawthorn, she would look at him pitifully again. She didn't need to say anything. As long as she pouted and looked at him with curved eyes, his heart would soften. In the end, he could only reduce the amount each time. People said that it was sour and spicy, but when it came to him, it didn't work. He couldn't tell whether his little fellow was pregnant with a boy or a girl. Xiao Su peeled a grape and brought it to her lips. She obediently opened her mouth and ate it. He continued to peel the next one calmly. In her eyes, it was as if he wasn't peeling grapes, but wiping his sword. Because his expression was very serious, so serious that it was fascinating. "Big Ice Cube, do you think it's a boy or a girl?" She lay in his arms and asked. "It's good whether it's a boy or a girl." He peeled the grape seriously. "But I thought you would want a girl." She spat out the grape seed and asked curiously. Xiao Su stopped what he was doing and looked at her with a faint smile in his eyes. "As long as it's your child, it's good. But no matter if it was a boy or a girl, as long as it was the little fellow's child, he would like it." Chu Qingyan felt that this person was getting better and better at saying sweet nothings. She smiled shyly and hugged his waist. "Big Ice Cube is the best. But if it's a boy, Kong Kong will have someone to practice martial arts with in the future. If it's a girl, with Kong Kong's protection, she will definitely live a carefree life." Xiao Su smiled slightly. That was natural. He would naturally arrange for their child to be together. "A few days ago, I received a letter from Zijing. Only then did I know that she had given birth to a girl. If not for the fact that we are related by blood, I would really want to marry her off." Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin and said regretfully. Xiao Su's eyebrows twitched slightly. He didn't expect the little fellow to have such thoughts. Kong Kong is still young. There's no rush. However, the person in his arms didn't listen to him. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Oh right, aren't Sima and young Master Ji already married? If they have a girl, let's make her Kong Kong's wife in advance, okay? Looking at his wife's sparkling eyes, Xiao Su felt a little pressured. Their relationship should be mutual love. It's not very good to arrange a marriage before they are born. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and said disapprovingly, look at how handsome Sima and young Master Ji are. The combination of beauty and handsomeness will definitely give birth to a child who will surpass the master. So the child will definitely be very cute and beautiful. Moreover, half of the child's IQ comes from its parents. Sima and young Master Ji are so smart, so the child won't be bad. In this way, won't it be a good match for Kong Kong? She had already imagined a scene of a golden boy and a jade girl being childhood sweethearts. Xiao Su was very helpless against his wife's wild imagination. However, as long as his wife was happy, she could do whatever she wanted. He didn't object. Kong Kong sneezed as he played. He was completely unaware that his parents had sold him. Jasper immediately went into the room to get a cloak for her little master, afraid that he would catch a cold again. It was rare that Chu Qingyan didn't feel sleepy after lunch, so Xiao Su took her to the courtyard for a walk. All right, what has Water Spirit been doing recently? It seems that we haven't heard from her for more than a month. Xiao Su supported her waist and said, let her help Jean exit. She should be in the Yu clan's territory now. As soon as he said that, the two saw Hua Ling hurriedly run over. Master, young princess consort, Water Spirit is back. Water Spirit is back? Chu Qingyan looked at the person beside her in confusion. Wasn't she in the Yu clan's territory now? Why did she come back? Xiao Su was also puzzled. He asked Hua Ling, where is she now? In the main hall. Hua Ling's expression was a bit anxious. Master, you didn't see how Water Spirit looked when she came back. She looked like she had lost her soul. After so many years, I've never seen her in such a sorry state. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other and walked towards the main hall without another word. Chapter 16-14. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan rushed to the main hall and saw Water Spirit standing there as if she had lost all her luster. She didn't seem to have a soul, just like an empty shell. She didn't even notice that they had entered. They had never seen Water Spirit like this before. Chu Qingyan quickly walked over and reached out to hold Water Spirit's hand. She looked at her lifeless eyes with heartache. Water Spirit, what happened? Tell us, your master and I will make a decision for you. At this time, Water Spirit finally sensed their arrival. She looked at Chu Qingyan in a daze and then reached out to hug her, crying out, little princess consort woo woo. The tears that she had been holding back the entire way finally came out at this moment. Water Spirit cried her heart out, as if she wanted to cry out all the pain she had suffered for the past 10 years. No one knew what happened to her, but just hearing her voice, they couldn't help being moved. Chu Qingyan was tightly hugged by her, as if she was a piece of driftwood. She couldn't help reaching out to hug her back, gently patting her back as she softly said, don't be afraid, cry all you want. We're all here, we won't let you be bullied. Little princess consort, he's not dead, he's not dead. Woo woo, it's been 10 years, it's been 10 years, she kept mumbling incoherently. Chu Qingyan was the closest to her, and when she heard what she said clearly, she felt the person in her arms go limp and fall to the ground. She hurriedly supported her. Someone, ethereal, heard that Water Spirit had fainted and immediately rushed over. She took her pulse and thought that she was seriously injured, but the result was, she fainted because of excessive exhaustion and emotional fluctuations. After listening to Kong Ling's diagnosis, everyone looked at each other. According to Shui Ling's temperament, it was impossible for her to cry until she fainted. What was going on here? Just now, her subordinates said that she hasn't rested for 3 days and 3 nights. Hua Ling came back from downstairs and told everyone about this. Ever since Feng Ling passed away, we haven't seen Water Spirit act so abnormally. Ethereal looked at Water Spirit on the bed and gave a faint sigh. Once Feng Ling was mentioned, Xiao Lai Qi and the others fell silent. Feng Ling's death had always been a scar in their hearts that was hard to erase. Chu Qingyan at this time, she suddenly remembered what Water Spirit had said when she hugged her and cried. She kept mumbling, "He's not dead, it's been 10 years. Feng Ling zest. Did she say he wasn't dead? 2. But we still haven't found his corpse. Hua Ling immediately added. The two looked at each other before looking at their master who had been silent the entire time. Xiao Su's eyes were heavy. We'll know when Water Spirit wakes up. Everyone was dejected. It was useless for them to make wild guesses here. Water Spirit did not sleep well. Her brows were furrowed as she muttered. In the end, she shouted something and woke up. Everyone wanted to let her rest first and prepare to leave, but because of her shout, they pulled back their feet. Shui Ling, what's going on? Shui Ling was still sitting on her bed in a state of shock when she suddenly heard a reassuring voice. Turning her head to look at her master, little princess, and all her companions who were all worried about her, she couldn't help bursting into tears again, but this time she was happy. Master, Feng Ling isn't dead. He's in North Korea. These words were like a bomb that caught everyone off guard. After a while, Water Spirit changed her clothes and reappeared in front of everyone. Xiao Su sat at the head of the table and asked calmly, "Tell me about this matter." Shui Ling nodded. After more than half an hour of rest, her complexion had improved a lot and was no longer as pale as before. A month ago, this subordinate accompanied Jin Xian to the Yu clan to investigate. However, in a small alley, this subordinate saw an old beggar with a string of wind chimes in his hand. As she spoke, she pulled out a string of wind chimes from her sleeve. They had been rubbed so hard that they had almost lost their color. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she forced them to not fall. This looks like an ordinary wind chime. What does it have to do with Feng Ling? Cheng Yanluo looked at the string of wind chimes seriously and asked in confusion. Meanwhile, Ethereal seemed to have thought of something. I remember that Feng Ling used to like making small things like this for you. Could this be? Upon hearing this, Water Spirit's eyes reddened even more. Yes, this was made by Feng Ling. This string of wind chimes was a token of our love back then. It was also consecrated at the temple to ensure our safety. There used to be a pair, but he broke them while on a mission. Before the battle at Ci Shui Slope, I gave him mine. His original one had the word water, mine had the word wind, and she flipped open the bell at the bottom and showed it to everyone. And this Feng Ling has the word wind below it. Needless to say, this wind chime was the one that Feng Ling had with him back then. Everyone was delighted. Could it be that Feng Ling is really still alive? Water Spirit nodded. I thought so too, but, however, no one knew how this string of wind chimes had traveled from Sichuan to North Korea, which was so far away. Xiao Su suddenly spoke. What did you find out from that old beggar? Water Spirit fell silent, her expression very disappointed. Nothing. The old beggar said that he picked it up in the capital, but the wind chimes were covered in blood. However, it had already dried up. He spent a lot of effort to wash it off. He originally wanted to pawn it, but no pawn shop was willing to accept it, so he kept it with him. Then what did you do in this month? Xiao Su continued. Water Spirit continued to shake her head. I searched for a month, but I didn't find any news. Because of her words, everyone's surprise from just now instantly cooled down. This string of wind chimes did not mean that the wind spirit was still alive. It was also possible that the people of North Korea had picked it up when they passed by Sisui Slope and brought it here. If Feng Ling was still alive, he would definitely think of a way to come back and not spend 10 years like this. However, back then Feng Ling had died without a corpse. This made Hua Ling and the others feel a bit lucky. Hua Ling could not help but take a step forward and ask, Master, do you think Feng Ling is still alive? Xiao Su furrowed his brows, obviously thinking about this matter. At this time, Water Spirit suddenly knelt down. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with tears. Her originally small face had become even smaller because of this month's hard work. Her pleading eyes were filled with tears, making her look even more pitiful. She placed her hands on the ground and kowtowed as she pleaded. Master, Feng Ling must still be alive. Let's go find him, all right? After all these years, who knows how much he has suffered? Let's go find him and bring him back. I beg you. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.